Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the August 20th, 2013 meeting of the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners. May we have the roll call, please?
Present is Selectman Whiteside, Selectman Holmes, Selectman Titlebaum, Selectman Slavin, Town Administrator Derek Sullivan, Town Councilor Richard Bowen.
Next item, please.
Announcements. Mrs. Whiteside. Mr. Holmes.
Yes, I do.
We know
Matter of
that.
fact. Since I'm a week behind, I'll bring you up to speed. This past Sunday, we went and enjoyed Barnacle Bill's on Cranberry Highway.
BB's.
And we sat out on his new deck, the one where you can't drink yet.
Yep.
Because it's wide open. And we took little Devin there, and he enjoyed some fish and chips and clam chowder and some clam cakes, which were outstanding. One of the things that people always talk about are big box stores. So my second announcement tonight is a big shout out. And I go there quite often and forget this on Tuesdays. On Route 6, right next to Dunkin' Donuts on Cranberry Highway, is a place called Family Pet. I see a couple of heads shaking. Okay, good. Because, it's very difficult today to run a family pet business when you have the likes of Petco, PetSmart, and all this stuff, right? So, quick story under announcements. I've been going there. I'm raising 2 red Oscars, tiger Oscars. And I go there every Wednesday or Thursday, and Eric has a bag ready for me with 5 dozen feeder fish. Now, I know that's gross. Kids, stop listening. But here's the difference. When you go to the big box store, they don't even know who you are. They don't know I have 2 red tiger Oscars. And half the time you go there, it's different people. And they're not always friendly in the pet store. So I want to give a big shout out to Family Pet. They've been in Wareham for years, and they do an outstanding job. And so if you have a choice in your pet needs, not cemeteries, Alan, in your petting needs, give them a try. And the prices, I can tell you, because I am a little frugal. And I got to tell you, the prices are right. And they know you. They get to know your pets. They have your stuff there for you. They'll pre-order it for you and have it ready when you get there. They do a great job. And they're a great business to have here in Wareham. So the other businesses, you'll have to wait till next week. I wanted to spend a few minutes on the Family Pet Store. And again, that's Cranberry Highway, right next to the Dunkin' Donuts and the bumper boats there, the car track. Okay? That's all I got.
So you didn't have shrimp Mozambique at the restaurant, huh?
Didn't have the shrimp.
You missed a good thing. Okay, I've got a few things as usual. Oak Grove Cape Verdean Cultural Center has the Summer Family Barbecue. This will be Saturday, August 31st, 12 noon to 6 p.m., 393 Onset Ave. It's located next to St. Mark's Methodist Church. Free admission. Come one, come all for an afternoon of fun and excitement. It all starts with hip swinging, toe tapping, hot rocking music for all ages. You will love it. Bounce houses for the children, pie eating contests, razzle dazzle specialty cards to check out, bobbing for apples. They'll have raffles, and the food will be yummy hot dogs, meaty hamburgers, tasty chicken, great fries, cold drinks. This is their 100th year anniversary for the Cape Verdean School as well. Excuse me, for the Oak Grove School. Okay. Wareham Summer Celebration 2014. Wareham Crossing is hosting a summer bash this Thursday, August 22nd, from 5 to 8 p.m. near Sleepy's, again at Wareham Crossing, to help the Wareham Summer of Celebration 2014 Committee raise funds for next summer's celebratory events. In the summer of 2014, Wareham will celebrate its 275th birthday, as well as the 200th anniversary of the attack of the Nimrod by the British warship HMS Nimrod. Join the Summer of Celebration Committee as we dance to the music of the Corvairs and enjoy some of our favorite summer treats, hot dogs, lemonade, ice cream. Also, don't forget about the Cruising the Canal on the 26th, which is this Monday, from 7 to 9 p.m. aboard the Viking at Onset Pier. I think there still might be some tickets available. They're $15. Town of Wareham, there's an announcement on brush removal. Wareham Town residents, per order of the Wareham Town Administrator, Derek Sullivan. I guess that's your fault. Effective August 30th, 2013, the town of Wareham will no longer accept brush from Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 95 Charge Pond Road. Instead, Municipal Maintenance Department will begin to accept brush on the second Saturday, again, the second Saturday of each month, beginning Saturday, September 14th, 2013. Brush removal is for Wareham residents only, and you must have a valid dump sticker. Municipal Maintenance will only accept brush that is 3 inches in diameter or less and cut into 3-foot sections. That's it for me.
I just have one quick one. The administration recently put up a new lockbox. It's on the driveway on the way in here. So if you want to pay your tax or sewer bills during off hours when town hall isn't open, you can pull up. It's just a slot. Just put your payment in there. No cash, please. It is under 24-hour surveillance, so don't get any bright ideas about walking off with it. Thank you.
All set?
Next, please.
Jerry, you ready? Announcements. It's done. Citizen participation.
You didn't miss it this week. Would any citizens like to come forward and speak to the board? No?
Oh.
Next item, please.
Consent agenda. I don't have any bills or documents. I have, first item will be release of executive session minutes. Town council went through the minutes, and I'm just going to list off the dates and ask for a motion to accept all these. January 12th, 2010, February 2nd, 2010, February 16th, 2010, March 1st, 2010, March 30th, 2010, April 13th, 2010, May 10th, 2010, May 11th, 2010, May 19th, 2011. That might be an error. I'm going to hold that one. June 8th, 2010, June 15th, 2010, July 1st, 2010, September 11th, 2010, September 28th, 2010, December 14th, 2010, May 8th, 2012, May 15th, 2012, May 21st, 2012, December 11th, 2012.
Mr. Slavin, I believe that's a scrivener's error under May 19th.
I think so, too. It's probably going to be 2010.
Yep.
2010.
Yes.
Just a question here. Have we identified the specific matters that were discussed during these executive sessions for which the minutes can be released? Because I'm concerned that if we vote to release the minutes from any specific date, that we are voting to release all the minutes from a specific date, and some matters may still be pending.
I believe town council and I went through the list about a little over a month ago because this thing's been sitting and accumulating, and every particular set of minutes was vetted through before town council gave us an okay to release.
Please.
An auspicious beginning. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Selectman Slavin is correct. We did go through the minutes line by line. Oh boy.
I'd wear a bow tie. It would work a lot better.
Yeah, I won't get it caught on the mic. In any event, we did go through the minutes. We did take note of the fact that there were still some ongoing matters such that the minutes should not be released. I think there may have been one or two instances where we actually decided that some could be released in part with appropriate redactions. So we went through it very carefully.
Okay, so long as you've identified the redactions. We just want to be careful here. Anything else on the question?
Well, yeah, then I do have a question.
Use the mic.
I do have a question, because the motion is to release the list of minutes Mr. Slavin just read. That would mean in their entirety.
I don't believe we have anything in there that had a redaction. I believe
Good.
these are only minutes that we can release in full.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would
No, that's the question.
Oh.
Okay. Good enough.
Selectman Whiteside? Well, these gentlemen seem confident that we're not going to spill any beans we shouldn't be spilling, so anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0. Thank you for the work, both of you. Next, please.
Okay.
Mr. Titlebaum,
Yes.
may I?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Wait a minute, move the chair.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, we should have done that ahead of time. Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of July 9th, 2013.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of August 13th, 2013.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained,
1.
301.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of July 30th, 2013, executive session and hold.
Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400.
I'd like to thank the office staff for getting the minutes done in a very expedient way for us. Next, we have request for the chairman to sign a budget and program revision form in the CDBG quarterly report.
Second.
Right, motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Holmes. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. Thank you.
Next up is a one-day wine and malt beverage license from the Bartending Service of New England, LLC, William Fuller, manager. I think he was here last week. Yes, this is another event at the same location. It's a wedding reception. Okay. Everything is in place. Tips training is here. I'll make a motion to approve the one-day license for August 20th, 2013 to the Bartender Service of New England, LLC, William Fuller. The address is 13 West End Ave, Middleborough, Mass. September 14th is September 14th is the date of the event. The approval is today. The hours are 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Box Mill Hall, Tohonet Village, Wareham. It's a beer and wine, and that's it.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Whiteside. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. Next, please.
Working on it. Next up, we have Better Future Project. Come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi.
So you're seeking a permit for the energy exodus, march from coal to Cape Wind. I assume this is the coal plant over in Brayton Point?
It's the one.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your event?
So we will be marching from, actually we'll be marching from Fall River to Hyannis. We see Hyannis as the center of the bankrolled, I guess, opposition to Cape Wind. So we seek to kind of highlight that opposition while also celebrating local sustainability efforts in eastern Massachusetts. We'll be stopping at Cape Cod Community College and celebrating their sustainability efforts there, the Fairhaven wind turbines, things like that. So this isn't really expressly a protest event. It's more a public awareness event. So we'll be passing through Wareham on the 30th. Would you like me to get into some more logistical details now?
Sure.
All right. So,
Yes.
yes. Oh, my apologies. My name's
Yeah,
John.
just state your name and
My
the
name's-
organization
yeah.
which you represent. Thank you.
My name's John Grisa. I represent Better Future Project. So the current plan would be to enter Wareham at 9:30 a.m. Along Route 6 on the 30th. We'd stop at Best Park at 11 a.m. We'd stop for an hour-long lunch break there. We'd continue again at 12 along Route 6. And we'd expect to leave Wareham by 2:30.
Thank you.
I've spoken with Police Chief Walsh earlier this morning. He's signed off on the event as well as the Board of Health. I'm wrapping up things with them. If you have any other questions and concerns, I would address them now.
Selectman Whiteside, do you have any questions about this event?
Okay.
Selectman Holmes? Selectman Slavin?
There was an issue about you going to stop and have lunch. Have they changed the location to Bessie Park or not?
Yes, we were originally planning on having it at Oakdale Park or Oakdale Playground, but they suggested that Best Park would be better, and I agreed. So we both decided it'd be best for both parties to stop there.
And you'll make the provisions to clean up afterwards.
Absolutely. We have a crew that's going to stay behind. They're going to be traveling by car, so they'll stay for a couple hours, clean up, make sure everything's in order, and then move on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well, I don't have any questions for you. Mr. Sullivan, anything?
No, I appreciate the Acting Chief Walsh getting in touch with you and
Yeah.
working everything out. What they've put together seems to be acceptable.
Okay. Well, let's
Okay.
have a motion.
I'll make a motion to allow for the use of the roads and sidewalks in Wareham for the Exodus Energy March from Cole to Cape Wind, August 30th, 2013, from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 400.
Thank you very
Get
much.
your permit. Good luck with your event.
Good luck.
Next, please.
We'll start off with sewer business funding source for contract 2. I think that's ongoing still.
Nobody seems to have anything for that, so.
Somewhere down the line, we need to make a decision on that. We've come up with a couple ideas. We'll have
Yep.
to vet that out shortly. Next, vote and approve Town of Bourne first quarter sewer usage, first quarter billing. Yeah. Yeah, it's just the one usage.
Evening,
Good
Mr. Campina. Welcome
evening.
back.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to be back. First item, the town of Bourne usage fee for the first quarter. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you have the actual numbers that came to this figure. I wanted to include it in your packet. If it's not there, then I'll get it to you. No, this is a summary of what we're sending them. But I asked, okay, I will get to the board the actual sheet we used to get to these numbers because I'm going to send it to the Bourne board. They requested it, so you deserve it also. So this is the actual bill.
We've got it.
Now there's a worksheet. Now this is the bill. And then they're going to sign to authorize us to collect this money.
Okay.
But there's an actual worksheet. Do you have the worksheet? That's to this bill. You should have had it. I will see that you get it.
No, I guess
No, it's a 4-page worksheet all by itself.
No, we don't
It
have
talks
that.
about, no, you don't have it. It talks about how we arrived at these numbers, so I'll see that you get it.
Okay. No problem.
So I'll get that to you. This is the bill. So what I'm asking is to the authorization to send this bill out, to give it to Mr. Foster to commit it and send out the bill.
Fair enough. May we have a motion, please?
Motion to accept the Bourne usage fee for the first quarter of the fiscal year in the amount of $74,855.75.
No, it's on.
It's green. There it goes.
There you go.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and bill the town of Bourne the usage fee sewer for the first quarter billing in the amount of $74,855.75 for the period July 1st through September 30th, 2013.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0. Thank you. We've got a number of abatement requests. Next up.
I think we'll take them, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. We'll go C, D, E, F, and go right down the list, and I'll try to stay with the list. The abatement request for 13 Lincoln Highway has quite a bit of documentation with it. This is one of those accounts that I brought to the board a couple of years ago involving individuals who had not tied into the sewer from contracts in the past. Weary Antic Shores, Rose Point, Briarwood, and so we created accounts and we sent out bills, and this is one of those accounts. So what happened on this particular account, the property was sold, the new owner tied in. So we had an outstanding bill out there on one account, so another account was created because of the tie-in and the paperwork associated with that. So then that owner sold it to this particular owner requesting abatement. So it got really, really complicated for quite a while, and that's why I included all the documentation, all the bill history, so you could see that. The long and short of it is that she paid up, other than the actual liened amount that it was included in the original $1,240 payment made by the old owner at closing. So I'm asking for the abatement for the $261.46 that'll make this account closed and make this individual whole, and we can move forward.
I'll make the motion to abate $261.46 to the property at 13 Lincoln Highway.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Slavin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0. Abated.
Next.
The next is 13 South Boulevard, and that's account number 735671. That's at 13th South Boulevard. That's the building with the fire. And the water's been shut off by the Onset Fire Department, Onset Water Department, I should say. And so we've got the data, the support that the water has been shut off. No water's being used. They meet the requirement of our policy. So I'm asking for the abatement of it says here the first half 2013 of $60.61, and of course the second half of $1,862.50.
So the total is the $1925.68.
Correct.
I make a motion to abate $1,925.68 to account 735671 for the reasons stated.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Slavin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained,
Wait a minute.
4-0-0.
And the second one, at account number 735423 on the same cover sheet,
Okay.
at 44 North Boulevard, the Swenson. They had purchased the property, and the water had been off since 2006. They purchased in that condition. So when they purchased the property, it was already in their, it was qualified for an abatement. Let me say it this way. The account should have been placed on hold. But the previous owners for 6 years that they had the water off never did anything. When the new owner came in, everything's closed, all the water shut off, so they were billed. So we put the account on hold, and there was no water moving, so we're abating what they paid because we should have put that account on hold long before they purchased it.
So the amount is the $298.
It's, yes, the $298, 198.68 for the first and 298 for the complete second. There's no water coming to that building. It was purchased that way. This building has been in a situation since October 2006 with nobody living in it. There was no water. There was nothing. And so we got all that sewer. So when they bought it, at the closing, it was all paid. But moving forward, we put the account on hold, and they shouldn't have been paying. It just seems fair and equitable.
So the amount is the 298, the total amount?
No.
No, it's a 198.68 for the first quarter and the 298 for the second half. We
Four-
bill twice a year, two halves, 298 and 198.
Now he's got me
496.60.
confused.
Yes, I will make sure that we total these out. I apologize. We just do them by halves a year, and so we should give you a total. I apologize.
49668.
Again?
49668.
I got 298.
298 on where it says first half and second half is 298 second half, 198.68 for the first half. The first sentence is recommend the above.
Slow down, guys. A little slow.
Okay,
please.
the above noted account be abated for 198.68 from April 2012 to July 2012. That's first half, and then the entire second half. It's on the same paragraph of 298. It's on the same cover sheet, on the same.
I'll make a motion to abate 49668 from account number 735423.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400.
I think I'm missing a piece off of that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's there. The next one is betterment abatement of $18,000, map 54, lot B 29. The lots were divided, and the betterment was placed on the front piece of property on Cremisa Road. And according to the covenant signed with the Town of Wareham Building Department, it could not be divided, so therefore it goes back to one lot. And his frontage is on Preservation Lane, which we excused, so he can't be bettered, so we need to abate him.
Move.
The planning board said they couldn't divide it, and I don't know why it was divided. I wasn't involved, but it was divided, and we bettered it. Come to find out, it could not be divided by the covenant, by the planning board, so it had to go back to us 1.9 acres to Mr. Liano. His frontage is on Preservation Lane, no longer now on Cremisa Road because it's back to one property, so we can't better it.
I'll move the abatement for 0 Cromieset Road, map 54, lot P29, and $18,000 because of the covenant which was signed at the time of purchase.
The building department has written a letter, it's in your packet, to verify all this. So it was all done through the building.
I made the
I'll-
motion, yeah.
You made the motion?
Yes, I did.
I'll second it for a question.
Yes.
Guy, on this here, is this have, I don't remember this probably before me, but there's a piece of land, a strip of land that goes along Cremisa, then there's a preservation lane or something that goes, one of the roads goes kind of behind it, and the utilities run along that road?
The utilities?
Yeah, and there's Cremisa Road. And
Yes.
there's preservation lane, but there's also a piece of land. In the land, there's a piece that sits on Cremisa Road, but there's like a road where utilities run behind it, if I remember this one right.
Between this lot in question and there's a strip of land between that and the easement, and then there's also another lot that has the drainage, which
Right.
we have our pump station on. This is a lot coming from Preservation Lane, 2 lots towards Cremisa Park. So
Okay.
there's a map of it here, and I probably even have a clearer one if you would like to
Yeah,
see that.
but a piece of it's actually on Cremisa Road, is it not?
Yes, this piece touches Cremisa Road.
Yeah.
But because it's tied into the 1.99 acres, and it couldn't be divided, so it attaches, it goes back to the Ulinau property, it's attached, one lot. So therefore, that front of that lot is now on Preservation Lane, and so if it's on Preservation Lane, is no longer a lot that's buildable on Cremisa Road.
So that lot now is all part of the original
It's all
lot.
part of the original. It's only one big lot now.
So therefore, it has frontage on Cremisa Road.
Well, no, it has frontage on originally on Preservation because it was split when it shouldn't have been split. Someone really couldn't split it. So when they split it, of course, we grabbed it. Now, because it couldn't be split, it goes back to its original form, which is fronted on Preservation Lane. We no longer have a frontage on, that lot is no longer fronted on Cremisa because he's built on Preservation and trying to subdivide the back end, and it couldn't be done. So that lot now is on Preservation Lane. And so because it's on Preservation Lane, we can't front it on, we can't grab it on Cremisa.
So the long and short of it, this is somebody tried to subdivide a subdivided lot.
Somebody tried to subdivide a subdivided lot that couldn't be
Okay.
subdivided.
Right.
Yes.
So we have a spud basically going down Cremisa, sticking out basically underground, waiting for a hookup that's not going to happen.
That's not going to hook up by covenant, by the original plans blessed by the planning board, unless someday that's changed, but right now it's not changed. The planning board has said that that's it. There'll be no more subdividing in that area. There's no business subdividing by the planning board's direction.
And the piece of land on Preservation Lane, which is the frontage, is not being hooked up to sewer.
No. Anything on that side, we only grabbed one lot on Preservation Lane. That's actually that because it fronted Cremisa. Anything that fronted Cremisa, we grabbed. Anything on Preservation Lane, we did not grab. No.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I'll wait till you're through with G.
You will?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Opposed.
3-1-0.
Next.
All right. This is a combination, 153, 157, 161 Cremisa Road.
Okay. For this one, I'm going to ask Attorney Bowen if he would come up, because I'm sure the board's going to have some questions for him. Good evening. Mr. Campino, why don't you give us the background of what happened out here?
Best of my knowledge.
Why these people feel that they should be abated, and did they ever receive any correspondence directly from the town to them stating that they would be abated?
There's 5 lots on a road called Agawam Road. It's a private road, and there's 5 homes there. They all have frontage on Cremisa Road. All the lots angle, they have frontage on Cremisa Road. Agawam, the private road, is not the road of frontage. There was a letter written back in October 27th of 2009 from Superintendent David Simmons to the developer, Mr. Scott Bladgston, indicating that there would be no bettering of those properties. And I think you have a copy of the letter. Specifically, it says the main sewer line will be installed on Cremisa Road. However, services will not be installed on Preservation Lane, Twins Beach Lane, or Agawam Road, and that's the road in question. Since this letter has been written on Cremisa Road, each property, there's 5, have been provided with a lateral. So, due to this letter written to Mr. Blasden, the developer, the owners of, at least 3 owners of this property at this time feel that that letter speaks to them and they shouldn't have to tie in or pay a betterment. So that's why this request for abatement of the betterment is before us, and it's a request for abatement of the betterment and not having to tie into the town sewer system.
I have a question. Is this the map? Because I can't read it. This was attachment B, and there's an attachment B and C. C doesn't seem to have anything to do with it. Attachment.
I think B is just the limits of this whole project. And let me just make sure
Could you-
I,
Could Mr. Campina step forward and show me where this
it should look like
is?
Mesa Road. No, it's not there at all. No, what about if we do this? So we go, and I think what we have.
While he's looking for this, to satisfy Mrs.
I
Whiteside,
think if I have an actual.
what are these people going to do for sewer?
Agawam Road,
Nothing.
and these are the properties.
Question is, do they have a Title V system there now?
Here's their laterals.
Presumably, they would have to have Title V. If they're not hooked up to the sewer, they've got Title V to receive an occupancy permit, so
It's probably a little more less confusing.
Sorry?
they would have Title V to have received an occupancy permit.
What are they going to do in the future? Are they going to tie in?
It gets kind of convoluted. It's easy to show you here. This is the actual layout. This is the road. These are the lots of question.
I suggest that you all, if I may, actually look at this, because I didn't understand. Thank you, Mr. Campina.
Same as last time.
Thank you.
Will these folks be tying in at some point?
Excuse me?
Will they be tying in at some point?
Well, if they're asking not to tie into sewer, they're asking not to pay an abetment. Let's say that they have a failed system.
Well, everybody would want to do that.
That's right. That's everybody. I haven't had a person. Well, that's all. I had a few people that said I'm excited about tying in.
Right.
But nonetheless, if they were to have a failed system down the road, they have no option. They would have to tie in because by law, with a failed system and sewer is available, they have to tie in at that point. They'd have to utilize that lateral. At that time, they'd be responsible to pay the most recent betterment. So septic systems, I guess it depends on your age and how long, but they don't last forever.
What is the current status of these 4 or 5 septic systems?
I don't know. I would have to say because they're newer developments that they would probably pass inspection, but I haven't had them. They'd have to be Title V inspected first.
The
to get
answer
a
is we
clear-cut
don't know.
answer. We don't know. We'd have to have them Title V inspected to get a clear-cut answer. But again, they're in that project. They're in that development. They're in the Cremisa Road. They frontage the Cremisa Road. And the letter written by the superintendent to the developer, it's beyond me. I don't have the legal expertise to say that they're responsible, but they're there. They're tied in. They've been bettered, and I think that it's the provisions for them to tie in. I believe that to be the case.
I have a question that probably nobody in the room can answer. Looking at this map that you've provided to each of us, I don't understand why the lot, any of those lots, isn't fronting on Cromisa. Why they're,
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, they put, I guess it's does that mean it's concrete roadway?
It's
through
an
there?
asphalt, yeah. Agawam is an asphalt private driveway, if you will. More than a road, it's a driveway. And I don't have the dimensions of it, but it comes off of Cremisa, makes a total like a half moon, and it goes back out to Cremisa. Their frontage is on Cremisa Road. Their property lines go, I don't know where the back is, I can't speak to that, but they actually, property line goes to Cremisa Road. They're on Cremisa Road. That's why they were bettered. And that's why they were given laterals.
Why is Mr. Bowen sitting there?
We have some questions. I think about the status of this letter, to whom it was addressed, and whether
Oh,
it's
well, let's,
relevant to
before we
their
jabber
claim of
wabber,
abatement here.
let's hear what he has to say, I guess.
Before we start,
May affect the questions.
I just have one question. I want to make sure. Each one of these homes, their actual address is Cremisa Road.
Correct.
And we do have in our bylaws, et cetera, for sewer, that when the sewer goes by, you have to hook up.
Correct.
Thank you.
Well, Attorney Bowen, have you looked into these abatement requests, and do you have anything to tell us about the legal effect of the correspondence from then Sewer Superintendent Simmons to Mr. Blagden?
Oh, yes, Mr. Chairman, and I did actually go over and take a look as well. Number one, the question of whether these lots are properly assessed has to do with where the legal frontage is, and the legal frontage is on Cremisa, not Agawam. Number two, the letter from Mr. Simmons, I believe, was addressed to the developer, not to any of these particular individuals, so that this isn't a situation where the town has made a representation to any of these applicants. And finally, the only body which would have the authority to, in essence, waive the betterment assessment is you, the sewer commissioners. And unless Mr. Simmons was acting in reliance upon a vote of the sewer commissioners, and I have seen no evidence to that effect, then he wasn't in a position to make a representation of that nature to this third party, to this developer, who, as I said before, is not one of the persons who's asking for the abatement.
Any further questions from the board?
I think that Mr. Bowen clearly answered the question.
Well, we have before us a package of abatements. We need a motion to address the abatement requests.
I would make a motion to deny the abatement on Bedman at 153, 157, 161 Cremisa Road, and is this? And 2 Preservation Lane.
Motion made by Selectman Holmes, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. Anything further on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 400. The abatement requests are denied.
Now, Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
might, I got to tell you, this is getting to be like a damn root canal. I've asked repeatedly over the last several months, what is the number? I mean, if all this had passed tonight, that's another $108,000 moved over to the town side of this bill. I've asked and asked and asked. Mr. Campino and I went round and round here about 6 weeks ago maybe over what the total number of this is. And look, I'm getting tired of this. These abatements are coming in. Now listen, and I'm not picking on you, so let's just
Understand.
clear that up in the beginning.
I totally understand.
But I'm picking on us because this is nuts. And everyone you sit there, Mr. Campino, and you say, we should have had this on hold. We should have. Well, let's just do it. Whatever we got to do in the office or whatever we got to do to fix these accounts, let's do it.
We are. The
But
board itself.
it seems it just goes on month after month, guy.
Every
I mean, let's just
I
get to the
agree with you.
bottom. Let's get it cleaned up.
Yes.
If you need help, see Mr. Sullivan. Let's just get this cleaned up so we're not in here every week with abatement.
I agree.
Contract 2. Look, this would have made 6 tonight. Let's get those 15. I think we agreed that there might be a number between 15 and 20. Let's get through the 20 now. Let's set a 2-week deadline. Let's get through them. get it through the Board of Sewer Commissioners, and be done with it. So in September, October, November, we're not dealing with abatements and betterment requests. Let's just get through it. Can we do that?
I don't know. Why I'm saying I don't know is because I address them as they come to me. So I would have to go to every piece of property and say, you're going to apply for abatement, are you not going to apply for abatement?
No, that's
And
not
so
what
I'm not
saying.
going to go there.
All
I'm talking about the ones
let's
in
forget
question.
the abatement on the betterment.
Now, let's talk about...
A house burns down.
That's right.
Another house has been without water for years.
We just
And
changed...
we're just getting
that's
the
right.
abatement now.
And we just changed the policy to reflect upon the demolition. We just changed that policy. We just added to the back of the bill the policy so that the residents, when they open their sewer bill, they know there is abatement process that they need to follow. That wasn't done in the past. So I agree with you.
Here's
But
an idea.
it's,
How about we get with Mike Martin and the other water
That's it.
onset, right?
Mhm.
And ask them to provide you with a list of all the water they have shut off. That must be a pretty simple list for them to generate. All units or properties where the water is shut off. They should be able to generate that.
They,
out of a
they
computer.
generate a list to me of all the properties with water, and I'm sure they can generate that.
Right.
But so if
So
there-
then you know which ones you shouldn't be billing. So if you don't bill them in the first place, you don't have an abatement to come before us.
If and I hear what you're saying, and
Okay.
I can do that. I just again, when they present it to us is when we act upon them. If somebody has a water shut off, and we've had countless examples, and some people just abandon it and move on, then I've got to find the homeowner, and because I can't just.
But you wouldn't need that if you had a notice from the water department that the water is shut off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you would have in place in your office a policy that says, hey, 3 Fire Alarm Road, the water was shut off on September 1st. By policy, September 30th, we stopped billing that account, close the account, whatever, put it on hold, right? Instead of billing it, and then when somebody gets around to it, then you come in here. That's all I'm saying.
Selectman
Maybe
White.
it's cost you a lot more money to manage, and it costs everybody more money. If you could just put it on hold when after they shut the water off, you'd be better off. That's to help you.
I understand that, and I just again, there are individuals that don't apply for them. The bills are paid, or closing, whatever. So I'm just worried about losing revenue. But but in
Well,
fairness,
you're not
if
going to lose revenue on an account that the water's shut off for 6 years.
I
You're not going to
understand.
lose revenue.
I understand.
You're spending money
and if
to
the-
send those bills out.
Okay, and if the board would like me to do that, I will do that. It's easy enough to do.
Yeah,
I
don't
can't do it on my
understand why
own
you need
because-
why would you need our permission to do that?
Because you are the sewer commissioners.
Ah.
And when it comes to billing and doing those type of things, I need your permission to do that when it comes to abating or
Mr. Chairman, could you put
policies.
this on for next week? And,
I have no
and
problem
We'll
if
make an
that's-
official request on the agenda to have the sender of the bills call the water department to find out who doesn't have water.
That's right.
So
I
we
can do
put
that.
those accounts on hold.
That's
and
right.
Be proactive in the future
Just give us the
to
authority.
avoid all this abatement business.
Well, he can do that. The other thing is we, as sewer commissioners, we can establish a policy,
That's it.
Well,
and then
it just seems to me
make
that
his job
that's
easier.
kind of day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
billing activity, and I don't know that the sewer commissioners need to be involved in that. Because what you're doing is
It's policy of billing.
you're just ending up here with all these accounts that they're
I
going to send
understand.
you a list, and every account on that list, you're going to end up in that chair asking for an abatement someday.
I may or may not, absolutely. And there's been many decisions by different boards that said, no, it's not our issue because we're talking about commercial, we're talking about residential. If it's going to be across the board, then it's going to be across the board. And so
There's no water
your
there, and you're going to
direction,
come back for an abatement. You should have the account on
understand.
hold now.
I can do
And that only
That's-
makes sense. You keep sending bills out to people. That costs money.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does, right?
Yes, it does. We generated
And
it.
you're never going to get the money, are you? You're going to get an abatement. That's what's going to
Well,
happen.
what I'm saying to you is, yes, if they ask for abatement, we give them an abatement. If they don't ask for abatement, that bill is collected, it's put on a tax lien, it stays on a tax lien. When that property is sold, the town collects the money. I can do
Wow.
it any way you choose for me to do it. I have no problem with it.
I
But if
just-
you want me to do that, and if the board directs me, I'll do that tomorrow. It's very
Get it on
simple,
the agenda for
straightforward.
next week, and let the board decide
well,
what they want to do.
this will also give Attorney
I
Bowen.
just think we need to be more proactive
Yes.
in these areas than we
I
are.
agree, and we are. We absolutely are.
That's
As
all
things
I'm
come up,
saying.
we're looking to make them, better in the future. I agree with you, and we're working very hard and diligent to make things better for everybody.
Right.
I would ask Attorney Bowen also to look into and perhaps deliver us a little sermon on the abatement process itself pursuant to Chapter 83, just to make sure that we can, on our own accord, make abatements in the absence of a request for one. So that becomes a legal
There's
matter.
no
He
abatement.
didn't say that.
There's no abatement if you don't send them a bill for something you know they're not going to pay. That's what I'm
I think what he's saying, and I understand, is that if the water department says that facility is receiving no water, then we should put that account on hold so no bills go out. At the time the water department writes back and says this is on hold, this is off hold, and that's the other glitch, because we got to make sure. So if they don't send us a letter that says they are now off hold, then they're getting free sewer. And so, and I can't walk to every these houses to make sure they're not back on.
Right now,
Because it would
that's
have to be-
working cooperatively
That's right,
with our
exactly.
water department.
That's right. So we'd have to cooperate.
They are
because-
part of the town of Wareham.
Well, I'm not saying they're not, but
Okay.
they have to agree to say, okay, this property is back online. So if they don't do that, then there's free sewer. So that's always been
understand
the
that.
apprehension of that second part of it.
I understand that.
We'll revisit this next week.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
May I
Yes,
make a comment?
sure.
Okay. Would it be possible for Mr. Campina to contact the two water departments and find out approximately how many properties we're talking about that are in fact not receiving water? And then before you go, galloping off into the sunset, I think that we really ought to know. I hear what you're saying, Mr. Holmes, and I agree with you 100%.
But you're right. We don't know how many there are. There could be 100.
There could be 2 million. I
There
mean,
could be 2.
yeah. So I think that in order to help Mr. Campina accomplish what he's trying to accomplish and what we're trying to accomplish, that maybe he could come back with that information, and then we'll be discussing it further.
That's a good idea to have the information before the agenda. Because that would have
We
come
could-
out next week and we would have
We
wasted
could do
another
that.
week.
Right now, we're in the middle of negotiating and talking to both water departments to get water usage. And what we're trying to do is merge all their accounts that they have generally on water and then with the actual streets that we have accounts
Right.
on. So we're working that process right now so we can whittle it down even further to find out, to answer your question. So we are in the process of figuring out who's on water and who's on sewer and merging those two lists. So we're in the process of doing that right as we speak. So
Sounds like the
it's just
perfect
not
timing. to
much of a
get
stretch
this
to go
done
one step
once and
further.
for all.
Yeah.
Set a good policy. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, it may be more than a
Not
couple
picking
of
on you.
no, I totally understand. that.
maybe more than a couple of weeks if he's in the middle of it. We may not be able to really move
Yeah, all
forward.
I'm asking for is just an agenda slot so that we can get it official on our docket. That will work.
So noted. Selectman Slavin?
Mr. Campina, who's responsible for the billings? Who
We
does the billings?
generate the bill by, Vadar has all our customers in there, all the customer base, and we take that customer base and we generate a bill, send it over to the town, and they bill. So yes, we're responsible for generating that list for the town to send out bills.
So basically, what we're asking you to do is change your billing system, which I don't think needs any kind of policy. We're just giving you advice that on your billing system that when you're doing it, you basically key off your billing system when accounts are no longer active through the water department.
Again, we have a policy for abatement for accounts that don't have water.
It's not abatement, it's
I
just,
understand that. So what I'm saying is the next step would be of that policy that all accounts that are not on water, we don't bill. So whether that's, and you formally tell me, but if you're saying that it's just a verbal, fine, then we can do that. If it has to be a policy,
it's your billing program. We're just telling you this would be a nice way to take care of it, that's all. It's a day-to-day.
I'd like to have we can have the discussion.
I don't have a
agree,
problem with
agree.
it. If you,
That he can circumvent. We're not talking about abatements.
no, we're talking about just, if it
trying to
doesn't have
avoid
water,
them.
shut it down.
Right,
Shut it
trying
down.
to avoid
Sewering.
Right. Because they are costly.
Yeah.
Like this conversation. I'm
Okay?
sorry.
And again,
I'm sorry. I just was trying to get it on the agenda.
to the merits of your conversation,
No, it's
because
fair.
if there's no water there, our other question is that we still have to go buy them with sewer. We still have to provide, so that's part of that study we're doing for rate setting too. So that all ties in.
Okay, that's
So
that's
thank
it.
you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
we'll discuss it when it's on
Yes,
the agenda.
good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll go to 8 Back Street.
Yes, we go 8 Back Street. I tell you, on this.
What happens to the people that are on well? That don't have pump or don't have line?
You know,
Ever thought of that?
As far as shutting them off?
I didn't hear a word he said. I can't hear him.
You're asking if you have well and don't receive service from either water district, what happens if you're not there anymore? You want an abatement or not? Well, you're going to have to file for an abatement. That's the point, because nobody's going to know
We're not going to know.
until you inform the town that you're no longer there. And yeah, they'd be coming before us. The people that aren't in either district would necessarily have to come before us with an abatement request.
And we're
We
trying to
wouldn't,
figure that out.
unless they notified the sewer department in advance. So can't make it perfect for everybody, unfortunately.
No.
But it's a good question.
But, Mr. Chairman, in regards, we are doing the water, and we're taking all our customers. If they're not in either water, then we're going to know that they're not, and because this is part, again, of rate setting. Because we're going to base it on water, and they don't have water, so this is all part of that study. So, and I keep alluding to it, but that
Yep.
study is what's going to get us to where we need to get. That'll answer a lot of these questions. And
Let
so
me just
we'll-
detour briefly. How's that coming along, anyway?
It's
I've,
come.
I've put up my time out, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to get something on the agenda, not to have a 15-minute discussion about it.
No. You've turned up some good rocks here.
It's coming.
But
It's
that's,
coming great.
it's not on the agenda.
Well,
8 Back Street.
I'll do 8 Back Street.
Yeah.
8 Back Street's a piece of property. I got to tell you, it's a. You have to know it's there, or you'll never find it. It's behind Onset Ave. It's a really unique piece of property. It has a cesspool, and the owner of that property is marketing it, and he wants to tie into sewer because his relative sewer's on Onset Avenue. Now, yeah, see, I know that. That's what I said. And I got to tell you, I looked all over Onset, and it took me a long time to find it. But if you look at the picture, that doesn't really help you. And I thought I'd send the map, but if you look at the drawing of the as-built here, you'll see Onset Avenue, and then you'll see a right-of-way that goes to this property at Back Street. Look at your pocket.
Is that
And
where the two
you know-
duplexes are?
just before that, and if you know where the entrance to the old campsite back there of the I think it was the religious group up back there, right across the street, back in that area is Back Street.
Yeah, so
It's
it's with-
behind the duplexes, the duplexes that are the older duplexes, behind them.
You're out talking about,
But the
Yeah,
other-
so if you look at the campground, across the street from the entrance of the campground, you'll see a set of duplexes. Behind the duplexes is this piece of property. Back Street is that dirt road that runs between the duplexes and the other house, and it runs between that and goes to this, services this property, Back Street property.
Those two duplexes, you came before the board some time ago before me, and they wanted to use one pipe coming in and
That's right.
split.
That's the two on the two new ones.
Yeah.
That's down a little further.
And
These
this
are
is
the old
before.
raised, yes, they're, because you'll see the raised rents, they're white and yellow, white and red, the raised rents duplex. This house is behind those.
Just a dirt road.
It's called Back Street. And so there's a cesspool. And we also, if you remember, if you continue on Back Street, it went to a piece of parcel back there that we've granted permission to tie in. They're developing it. We had a developer from Marion come in. The family wants to develop that, so we gave them permission to tie into Onset Sewer when they do that. And so what these folks are doing, they have a failed system. It's a cesspool. So they would like to tie it into the sewer. So I'd like to do the same thing. We're going to put a system in, a low-pressure pumping system that's going to macerate it, send it out in an inch and a quarter line, because we have to, again, tie into someone else's lateral on our property line, and by macerating it and putting an inch and a quarter pipe, we're going to minimize any type of interference on the water coming out of the duplex that's there. So that's the plan, to get them sewer and do it comfortably for everybody and use less intrusive, instead of 6-inch lines tying in, we're going to use inch and a quarter, tie into that lateral that comes out, and feed them sewer and get this property on sewer. It's in a very sensitive area, so I think this is a win-win for everybody, for the town, for the homeowner, for the prospective homeowner, the whole 9 yards. It's a great idea, great concept, and I think I'd recommend the board highly to look at this and consider it in the positive.
Selectman Slavin?
Why are we crediting out $15,000?
Good point. There's an estimate here for $15,000. There's a sewer development charge policy,
Yeah.
and it states it's the sewer development charge where a gravity feed connection is not possible because we can't get gravity from that area to here, and a pumping system required is equal to the amount of the most recent betterment, which is $18,000, less the cost of the pumping system. So we credit them back the pumping system. And we do that with everybody. When we developed AD Makepeace, we took away the sewer development fee, which is the thousands, because they put a pumping system in. So that's our policy. And so because they're putting a pumping system in, we got to credit back the cost of that pumping system, and then anything that's left over is what we charge them to tie in. That's
So
the sewer policy.
this is not the same as when we put grinders in, say, on Oak Street on the
No.
water side.
No, it isn't, because that was a whole different ballgame. That was part of a planned process, and so we had nothing to do with that. But if you were to come back, because we're not talking about a better, we're talking about sewer development, which is after the fact. And this is what this is after the fact. It's sewer development. We're developing a piece of property, bringing it to sewer that benefits everybody. And what we're saying is the cost of doing that, we'll credit back the cost of the pumping and getting it in. We'll credit that back, and the balance of that will
My only concern is that anybody who ties into a sewer after the fact later on has to pay $18,000 betterment as of right now.
if they're gravity,
This
absolutely.
particular project here, the town is putting in a pumping station and paying for it, virtually all of it. The
There-
residents
I-
paying almost nothing.
Right. Well, the residents paying for, I understand, because it's a credit, and anytime you get a credit, that's been an ongoing debate for hundreds of years, but it's a credit. I agree with you. But the bottom line is they're tying into the system, and that's a very sensitive area, so it's better for everybody to tie that particular piece of property into the system.
Just
And
as
so
long as,
because it sets back, and it wasn't included in the original project, we have to get it there, and it's the pumping system. So they're rare, and I agree, I hear what you're saying, but they're rare. It's not common. It's not really not common, so, in this
The
case.
gravity fed goes the other way, and we collect 15.
Correct. If it's all gravel, we collect the whole 18.
I know.
Yes.
That's the policy.
I'm sure we'll hear.
Anything else?
I move to approve the request for a sewer tie-in for 8 Back Street.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Whiteside,
I think you have to add the dollar amount as well, since this is a special deal. Total due at permit issue, Judy, is $2,775.
To what?
$2,775 is the total due at permit issue.
$2,775.
Second.
motion made by Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Slavin. Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400.
Thank you.
Any other good things for us?
I'm still waiting for you guys for appointments. I want to say Selectwoman Whiteside has been down. We went early in the morning. We had a great visit. I would like to take each one of you on a tour of the facility, and then we can do the pump stations and all our issues out there. I'm waiting for the phone call. We can get a cup of coffee and enjoy ourselves.
I'm waiting for you to fix the issue that I've been reading about all week on the emails.
Which one?
Odor.
Oh, we're at the odor. We're at the point of RFQ for that.
I didn't
And so,
ask you
yes,
to comment. I just said I'm waiting.
We are. Yeah, me too.
And I've
me
been
too.
out of town.
And you know
so-
something? When we
but
get
I
it-
will come.
I
But
know,
I,
when we
ca-
get it
I wouldn't
fixed-
be able to deal with that.
Okay, well, you're not going to. It's not as bad as you think it is. But nonetheless, when you come and when we have that odor fixed, we're going to have a little get together for the neighbors. I'm going to tell you publicly, and you will be there because it's going to be a good time to tell them, thank them for their patience, and we'll have a little ice cream or something, and when that's in and up, we're going to do that. So
Hot dogs.
I hope maybe we can do hot dogs, whatever you want. We put it in the budget, and so I want to let you know beforehand. So when that's
All
up,
right. So you're going to let us know when that is?
absolutely, when it's installed, I'd like to see you there doing the installation. I'd like to invite the
Absolutely.
neighbors because it's been
Is
a
it
long time
like
for
next
them.
week, the week after, what?
I think
Before
September
Labor
20th.
Day, after
No,
date?
it's September 20th.
September?
Yes, and it's been a long haul for the neighbors, and they need to see
When
it.
does the, no, when are you going to start installing?
September 21st. September 20th, all the bids are back in. And why I'm saying that is because they have been very patient, and I smell it too, but I work in it, so it's a little different for me. So take me out of the equation. I really do feel from them. They've been complaining. We've been doing everything possible.
I'll try to
It
stop
has
by
gotten
next
better,
week.
but
Okay.
please. And so we're going to bring it to a close for these
Go early.
fine people.
Send us
They've
an
been very
invitation.
patient. Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time. I
Thank you.
appreciate
Hope your vacation was long enough.
it. Yeah, but it was refreshing. Though it was short, but it was refreshing. So I got to say, I may be nuts and crazy. I work hard, but it's good to be back.
It's good to see you back.
Thanks again. Okay, next item, please.
Town business. Item A, always on the agenda, discussion on guidance to town administrator during the next year. Mrs. Whiteside?
No, I'm pleased to see that we've begun to generate some information for us to be looking at.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Holmes?
one question, standing question. It may be in all these papers I just got, but what is the kiosk total now?
From last week, I believe we were at $27,000. And what I've done is I pulled last August. Last August altogether, I believe, was at just about 27,000 as well. So we've got about 10. Today's the 20th, so we've got about 10 days to see how badly we'll beat August of last year.
And you know, it's still scrambled a little bit, but okay, so that's 27 at 16. So you're ready for the next? Did you already order the next one?
No, we haven't. We haven't ordered the next
What's
one
the
yet.
problem?
We wouldn't have it. I would wait on ordering the next one till we have the true parking plan as to
Just
where
don't
we.
spend the money anywhere else. That's my
Oh.
guidance.
Okay.
Because I got to tell you, there's another lot down there that
Yeah.
put a couple of kiosks in it.
Yeah.
Pay here signs, and you could almost double your money.
In order for
Almost double your money, my friend.
Yeah.
It's full every weekend,
Yeah.
and not a dime. So, the next two kiosks.
Okay.
I paid for kiosk parking last week in Plymouth, and I think I sent you. Did I send you a picture last week from New York?
Yeah, you did.
I sent Alan pictures of kiosks. He must think I'm crazy. But they had the metro tickets, the kiosks for the parking, and there was another ticket, some kind of, maybe it was a bus ticket or something. But you
It was
get
a
the
bus
subway,
It was a
kiosk,
bus.
and the bus ticket right there, all together. No
Yeah.
issues. Nobody calls in sick. They're there every day. All you got to do is put it together.
I think you brought
So I'm
up
waiting.
you brought up one of the great points that people should understand. The revenue that goes into the receipts reserved for appropriation, we cannot just spend out of that account. We need to appropriate that money
To
through
town
town
That's right.
meeting. So, I know
So
some
should
people
we
were-
be preparing an article for November for the purchase of two kiosks?
What I would do is I would put an article in. to
You're
try-
hemming and hawing on me, Derek. Mr. Town
I'm tr-
Administrator, straight answer is what I like. Come on, buddy.
Straight
Yes?
answer is yes, we should do that.
That's all I want to hear. You didn't listen. I'm not busting your chops, but you know how important this is
Yeah.
to me, especially with revenue.
Yeah.
And when I see that lot in other places every weekend full, and you're not getting the money for the town, I just think it's not good. I know we have a plan we're putting forward, but I think you're doing a good job.
Okay.
But I'm going to keep pounding on this parking thing because you can't go to any community and not pay for parking. Nowhere. Especially on the seacoast here.
Yep.
So, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
As most people know, the town planner, it basically is finished at the end of this week. While at Serpent today for MPO meeting, the director of Serpent, Stephen Smith, asked me to relay to the town administrator that if they need a planning help in the interim, Serpent offers a service available to the town. So if there is an issue there, we can rely on them to help us during the interim.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
I don't have anything specific. Next item, please.
Next item, we were expecting to have Howard Anderson here today. There may be an issue where he can't make it here. Winter is here from Onsen from the Prudential Committee for the Fire and Water District. So what we'll do, I think, is we'll just make the presentation with Winter here, and then I will take the plaque.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we'll get it next. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to arrange it next week or not.
Give it a shot.
You want to wait till next week?
Yeah.
All right, we'll put it off to next week. Never mind. Rewind. Well, that's what I had. That's what we had arranged for today, so I have no idea what happened. Okay. No. No, she didn't.
No.
Okay. Celebration 2014 committee is next. September 6th, I think it is.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, would it be okay if Mr. Slavin, there is actually an event, it's not a surprise, honoring Chief Anderson coming up. And Alan and I have most of the details, but maybe Alan, you want to take
Yeah.
a shot at it?
Hopefully I'm right. Just so everybody understands, Howard Anderson, who's been the fire chief in Onset for a long time, is retiring, or has retired, really. And his retirement party is, I believe, September 6th, and it's at the Elks. I don't know what time it's going to start. I didn't get that time, but it should probably be up on the Elks bulletin board as well. It'd be very nice for people to come and say hello to Howard. He's given a lot of time and a lot of service.
I think it's 6 o'clock.
Mr. Holmes thinks it's 6, so we'll go from there. But again, he
We'll have a flyer
deserves a
here.
thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening. I want to thank you for having us in tonight. As we've said at our last meeting, we like to keep you up to date with what's going on with the plans for the Summer of Celebration. And before I get into it, I would like to acknowledge and thank the committee for the work that they have done this far. They have all been busy, and the reason the rest of them are not here tonight is I hope they're home putting their feet up, because they have been meeting over the last week and week and a half almost daily, or every other day, with planning for their events. So they have been busy beavers, and if they're home tonight with their feet up, they certainly deserve it. But we wanted to bring you the unveiling of our logo this evening, and if that's too shiny, I do have a canvas one that, if the camera would rather focus on something that doesn't reflect, I do have a canvas. We had to come up with some sort of a logo that would represent both events, both the attack of the HMS Nimrod and the incorporation of the town. So we've merged the two consecutive circles with a rope around it, which is indicative of the water of the ocean, and the dark blue to represent water. And so tonight we're unveiling our logo for the Summer of Celebration, which will be on everything that we have going forward, be it business cards, rack cards, shirts, other things that we're coming up with. This is the logo going forward that you will see on banners and anything that we do in print, any advertising that we do. So we're pretty proud of it. It took a little bit of work. It took a lot of discussion, a lot of compromise back and forth as to what we wanted to see and not see, and a lot of rewrites. It was a very slow process, but we're pretty happy with it, and we hope that you are too. It's been a very busy time, initially trying to get going, and as you know, everything depends on funding sources, and it was hard to get started without having any money in the kitty. And so our first outreach was to try to build some sort of a small fund that we could get going with. And we want to acknowledge and thank Senator Pacheco and Representative Susan Gifford for working on our behalf. We had applied for state funding, and we were at the last minute getting it in to the budget. It was filed with an amended budget, and then it didn't pass, and then it got put into a supplemental budget, and then the governor vetoed it, and then the House and Senate overrode the veto. So we weren't sure from day to day whether we would get it or not get it, and we are receiving it, and it's $25,000, and it's a great start to get us off the jumping board to start moving forward. So we want to acknowledge Senator Pacheco and Susan Gifford for their efforts in making it happen, and all of our other people who called and spoke in their ear, and other senators to override the veto. So we're very grateful. Along with that, we've received some funding from CEDAR, from Community and Economic Development and community events, along with several of the local businesses. And Rudy Santos has been out really reaching out to the businesses, and we're seeing a lot of support from the businesses, and we're expecting that they will be very helpful in the area of financing. We've put together an actual sponsorship package, so if there are any businesses out there that want to participate and donate, there are various packages that we will be able to offer them, starting from $10,000 to $5,000 to $2,500 to $1,000 to $500 and $100. And each package comes with a sponsorship reward, if you will, of what they will receive, be it advertising or on a banner or tickets to the ball or in the program book. They will receive acknowledgement for anything that they're willing to help us with. We realize that these businesses deserve to be recognized for stepping up to the plate and helping the town. So we've put together a sponsorship package, and we're ready to roll that out. So if there's any businesses that want to participate, get a hold of us, and we certainly will stop by and say hello. And then over the next few months, we will be stopping at almost every business and also looking for individual sponsorships to help fund this project. We had sent out an application for our 501c3 back in March. As we all know, sometimes government is very slow. And unfortunately, because we have not received the paperwork, it has hindered us in several areas. We have not been able to apply for grants because they need that paper that says that we are tax exempt. We have been diligently pressing the Internal Revenue Service and asking them to expedite our application, and still haven't heard back. So we have reached out to Congressman Keating, and I actually saw him today at an event, and they will be working over the next couple days to get in touch with the IRS and hopefully get our application moving, because it is a very short term that we have to get this funding and start planning our events, and we need to know how much money we will have before we can actually book anyone. So we're working on that. I'd like to speak to our program that we're going forward, and you have before you, I've passed around, this just went to press at 6 o'clock this evening. This will be our rack card. It will be cut. It will have a front and back, and this will be handed out at any events that we have, and it will highlight what the events are so that people who are coming to events, this will be something that we can hand out and show them what's going on. It will also be given to Cranberry Chamber of Commerce, to the visitor centers, to Plymouth County Tourism. So this is the type of thing that we will be using to spotlight our events and get the word out so that people will know that next summer things are happening. So it begins in June, and it begins with a historical exhibit, and June will be all about the War of 1812. Representative Dave Vieira reached out to me. The HMS Nimrod not only attacked Wareham Harbor, it also attacked several other harbors, and one of which was Falmouth. So Falmouth is also putting together something to acknowledge and celebrate their anniversary. And Angela went down and met with, Mac and Nan went down and meet. It's hard to keep these committees straight sometimes, met with them. And actually, they're going to be reaching out to the historical societies of Falmouth, Mattapoisett, Fort Phoenix, Stonington. And what they would like to develop is a museum quality display all about the Nimrod and its role in the War of 1812 and in the whole story, not just the story of Wareham. If that comes to fruition, it will be an outstanding display, and we'll be very proud. It will move from town to town. We'll be very proud to take it and have it here, as well as the other things that we will have on display. And then on Friday, June 13th, which is the actual 200th anniversary of the attack on the town, we will be anticipating the British and the militias moving in on Friday for their encampment. And I brought you some pictures if you've never seen an encampment. They come with everything, their tents and their food and their gear. A group of us went to Sturbridge Village about 3 weeks ago, and they had a very huge encampment, and we went from camp to camp to camp, and we reached out to these militias. And actually tomorrow, Mac Finney and myself will be meeting with Colonel Bill Moss from the British Regiment of Boston, and they are a British regiment that have never been deactivated, and so they will be our British who will be attacking our harbor. So it's just, this has blossomed to the point where we need now to find extra room because we have so many that want to participate, and it's just becoming very exciting, and we're really happy that we have so much interest, and I think you're going to find that this is really going to blossom into something beyond what we've imagined it would. So they'll be coming in on Friday night, and then on Saturday there will be various things going on, demonstrations, a blacksmith, a tinsmith, We will have crafts of the period of time. We will have games for the children. It will all take place down in the historical district of the town, in and around Tremont and Nail, the town green. As I said, we're trying to branch out a little bit to see if we can find some backyards in that area where we may be able to put a regiment with their tents, but in a place where people can walk around and see what's going on. On Saturday, which is also Flag Day, we would like to have a military parade in honor of Flag Day, which would be mostly these regiments and fife and drum corps. And again, reaching out to fife and drum corps that will come. They're excited. There's not a lot of things going on, so they're real happy to have something to come to. So I think we will have a nice little parade on that event. We'll come back before you once we figure out how many we can bring in and what we need for space, and we'll be coming back, you know, for permits and that kind of thing. Back in the bicentennial, I believe it was the Wareham Lodge of Elks donated some drums to the Fife and Drum Corps. We have sent them out to be repaired, and when they went to the repair shop, we have discovered that they are very important and very well-made drums, and so at the same time they will be appraised, so that we will have that appraisal. They are signed on the inside, so we're finding things that we didn't realize, and this is really getting to be very exciting, and we're learning quite a bit about what went before us for the 250th. So on Flag Day, we will continue with the traditions of Flag Day and a military parade and demonstrations, and then on Sunday, it will be the actual reenactment of the British attacking Wareham Harbor, which we hope to have some sort of a sloop out in the harbor. We have a little bit of an issue with the draft on the river, but we may be able to get a little bit creative and disguise a little boat to be able to come in and look like the British. We also have reached out. We have some licensed cannoneers. We hope to involve a little bit of pyrotechnics that will make it appear that the British are actually attacking our town. The hope is to have a storyteller with a loudspeaker system, and we're actually researching the history and the actual happenings of what actually happened, and we will have it broadcast live so that people will understand what's going on. The British will come in. They may take some hostages. Back in the 250th, I believe they took the Board of Selectmen as hostages. So
Yes, they did.
be prepared. I know. It's really, I think it's going to be fun and exciting, and we have another regiment we're meeting with the following week out of Rehoboth, and they are very excited about coming, and they've all done this before. The British have actually done a reenactment down in Falmouth, so they've done this. This is going to be real. This is not going to be, you know, just sitting there watching things go by. This is going to be a lot of fun, and I think a great thing for the town, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. It's been work, but it's also been a lot of fun. And then on Sunday, June 22nd, we'd like to have a town clam bake, which right now it's tentatively planned down at Zecco Marine. So we'll have a little bit of a restful afternoon to sit and enjoy one another's company, because then we gear up for the ecumenical service on July 5th, in which we've invited all of the religious churches in town to participate in a blessing of the fleet down on Onset Pier, Onset Harbor. We will reach out to all of the marinas and send out flyers inviting owners of boats to decorate their boats, and we will have a blessing of the fleet and a boat parade. So again, we think that's going to be another fun event, and hopefully a nice day when we can get 1,000 or 2,000 people down on the pier to watch the boat parade and participate in that. And then we move into July, which is the town's birthday month. And from July 8th to the 10th, we will have historical displays in Town Hall. Those will tell the story of the town of Wareham and the history of Wareham, the history of the early days, some of the families that were prominent in town, some of the things that happened that are part of our history. It will be an awesome display, and people that have not lived here but have moved here recently will be able to see and understand the history of our community. And then on Thursday, July 10th, and that will run for 3 days actually, so that we'll have plenty of time for people to see it.
No, I was just saying that police and
We'll be doing police history of the fire departments, the two districts, the history of the police department. So it will be a little bit of everything, and I think it's going to be an eye opener for some people, and really, getting the students involved and researching, and the organizations that are part of this town, telling us the history of their business, their organization, and how they played a role in the early Wareham and their role today. So that's exciting as well. On Thursday, July 10th, is the actual 275th anniversary of the incorporation of the town of Wareham. That will be a birthday celebration, if you will, along with the importance of recognizing the incorporation. We will reach out to, the governor and our esteemed representatives to be here. We will have a formal ceremony, perhaps maybe a horse rider bringing the incorporation papers in. And then after that, it will be birthday party time. It will be cake and ice cream and fun and games, and just a real great time for families to enjoy. And then on Saturday, July 12th, that it will be the big parade. And again, we want to reach out to any of the businesses, anybody in the community that wants to put together a float. We have been soliciting bands and organizations and groups to come. Depending upon what we can do for funding will depend upon how many we can afford, because a lot of these organizations require transportation to get here. They require insurance, so they do have a fee. And so whatever monies we can raise, the more money we can raise, the more we can invite to participate. But having said that, there's also a lot of groups in town that we would encourage, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, anyone else, to put their 1739 regalia on and come join in the parade and make a float and get involved in that, and let's make this even a bigger parade than the 250th. And the 250th parade actually lined up back at the mine at school. That's how big it was. So we're hoping we can outdo that. We have high expectations that the town will step forward and they will come up with some awesome floats. You have the time if you start now, and it's fun to get together and get the family together and work on those kinds of things. And then on Saturday night is the Founders Ball. Again, period clothing and or formal dress. This has been somewhat of a little difficult thing to put together, because it's probably going to be one of our most costly, and so we really need to take a look at what we can afford to do and what we can't afford to do. The tent alone is around $10,000. The flooring and the stage is another $3,000. So we have some creative ideas that we're looking at, but this has been a little slower moving forward than what we had hoped, but it will be a big ball, and it certainly will be an enjoyable time for everyone. And then on Sunday, Sunday started out, and I brought you some pictures of the fire hand tubs in case you didn't realize what they were. Those are actually the ones that will be coming. They were at a muster in Newburyport, so those were taken 2 weeks ago, and so those are some of the actual ones that will be here. This has blossomed as well, and we have turned this into a whole public safety day. We met with the fire department, and the fire department's very excited, and normally they have an open house in October, and they have things that they do, rappelling and things for the children to get involved in, little competitions. They don't have enough room when they do these at the fire station, so they're very excited about bringing what they normally would do in October to the event in July. And so we have decided that since it has grown a little bigger, we will turn it into a full public safety day and have invited, or will be meeting over the next couple weeks with the police department, EMS, harbor master, the two fire departments, and make it a full public safety day with hands-on trucks. We have reached out to Mass Antique Fire Apparatus, Rhode Island Antique Fire Apparatus, with hopes to get a good number of antique fire trucks here that everyone can walk around and see. There'll be food vendors. In between the muster of the hand tubs, we will have spirited competition between the Onset and Wareham Fire Department, with some spirited little events, timed events, that kind of thing. So these are the things that we are anticipating. And like I said, everything we do, it sort of grows a little bit each time because another idea comes forward. And everyone is so excited and everyone's anxious to get involved. We've had a lot of great response, and so that's where we are at this point. I don't know if any of the other members want to. Angela?
We're working with a wonderful group of people. However, we're going to need many, many volunteers. And so I'm asking the community, please, if you would consider contacting us through the website. It's wareham2014.com. Contact Claire, Widow, or myself, or Mr. Blair. Please join us. It's going to be a great deal of fun. We need many, many volunteers for the fundraising events, all the way through to the actual celebration events themselves.
Yeah. We actually have an email address. It's 2014 celebration at wareham.ma.us. So I'll repeat it again, 2014 celebration at wareham.ma.us. Our website should be up by the end of the week. We've been adding information. It should go live the end of the week, and that's wareham2014.com. And we are also pushing out a Facebook page at the end of the week. So people will be able to go on the Facebook page and get updates as to what we're doing and weigh in on what they might like to see and what we could get back to them on.
Just a quick question, then I'll turn it over to questions. Are you going to have this schedule of events up on the website when you've got it
Yes.
going? Good.
Yep. We will.
So I know people will be very curious to see that.
Yes. One of the things I also want to share with you that in order to help pay for this, we have several fundraisers coming up. Wareham Crossing has been absolutely wonderful to us, and they have extended an open hand to us to work with us in any way they can. And they're having a beach bash, as Alan mentioned, this Thursday night. So people can come out and enjoy the festivities up there, and there will be a donation box if anybody cares to donate. We'll have some rat cards. These are the rat cards that I've shared with you. This just went to the press at 6 o'clock tonight, but I wanted to have something to bring to you, but we will have them printed and cut by Thursday. I have a promise that I can pick them up tomorrow. And these are the kinds of things that will be handed out at all our events so that people will know, and it will have the schedule on the back. On Monday, August 26th, we have a cruise out of Onset Pier, a cruise down the canal with Highline Cruises. And then on September 15th, we have a cabaret at Bay Point with Linda Calise. And if you have never heard her, it's a wonderful afternoon. Tickets are $35 a person, and that is selling out very quickly. So if you want to come, I would suggest getting a hold of Winter very quickly because tickets are going very fast for that. On September 28th, we have a psychic fair at the Elks from 10 to 4. Again, come down and see us down there. And then on November 1st, we will be having, and this is just being set up in the past couple of days, but Eastern Bank will be sponsoring a wine tasting. And I think we will have some sort of a photo exhibit and some music that will go along with that. So we are also, in addition to planning all of the events for next year, are planning events for over the winter to raise money to help fund this. So it's happening, and we want people to come out and enjoy. I happen to be at the plaza today getting some things printed, and I happen to be doing the poster, and I had a woman standing behind me, and she said, I want to get involved, I want to get involved. So we really want to encourage people, get involved and come out, support the events that we're having. And if you have an idea for a fundraiser on your own, that you want to do and then donate it to the organization, fine. We're all happy with anyone that's willing to help us.
You exhaust me. It's just, congratulations to you and your committee for as much as you've accomplished in a really short time. 2 quick questions for you. Was there a town crier at Incorporation Date? Because I have a nomination for that one.
I tell you what, I am going to have the privilege of researching some of the material for the 250th next week. And I'm sure that in that paperwork, we'll see. But if not, if you think that would be a great idea, I'm sure we could, if you wanted to nominate somebody, we could dress them up and make them the town crier.
It's just kind of a neat, old-fashioned way of spreading the news. Instead of waving signs around, you ring
Yeah.
a bell and you talk. And the second question is, have you invited the mayor or mayoress of Wareham, England?
We have talked about that, and actually, it's something that several of us have said we would love to fly over and do. Part of the issue is that if you invite them over, you have to find accommodations and pay for some of their airfare. So that has been our stumbling block, is how do we accomplish that? I mean, you can't just say, would you like to come and pay for it yourself? I have had some correspondence with some different groups in Dorset, Wareham, England. We had a gentleman that wanted to know if we had an art club. Oh, that's another thing I need to bring forward too. And then we had a woman who, the Boy Scouts over there are doing an international project and wanted to get in touch with the Boy Scouts here. So we made those connections. So we do have the connections to Wareham, England. It's just trying to sit down and figure out how can we afford to offer them, some assistance to help pay for their airfare or lodging or whatever. But we would love to do that. They were here for the last one.
Right, exactly.
The town clerk, I believe, and the mayor. But
Mayoress.
Yeah, mayoress. So.
Again, congratulations to all of you.
Any other questions? Or
Just one thing, if we have a chance next week or so, we could walk the Tremont Nail property, take a look at behind the steel building and take a look at some of that upland.
Yeah, we're looking, we need some extra room.
Oh, okay.
We need a lot of extra room. These militia groups are really pressing to come, but we just don't know where we would put them. I wanted to mention, I received a call before I went on vacation, and actually she called me today. There is a woman who is doing a mural, a 4-foot by 5-foot mural, and she and her friend just happened to pick the attack of the Nimrod, not knowing that this was happening or anything, and she contacted me. I'm going to be going down on Saturday to take a look at it. She would like to donate it to the town, so that may be something that we will be acquiring and trying to find a 4-foot by 5-foot spot for artwork. And it, from what I understand, it will have ships, all of the ships that were attacked and different things. It's sort of a collage of things that happened. But she is a well-known artist that does quite a bit in the area, and that will be very exciting too if we can make that happen on behalf of the town.
Okay. We'd be glad to accept that gift.
Oh, wonderful. Claire, when you get the 501c3 any day now, as we all hope, were you thinking about doing any of the online donations for the people that can't make it back to Wareham, and maybe the sons and daughters that are across the country?
Yes, we probably something like that. We could set up a PayPal account,
Yeah.
or arrange some way that they could go online and donate, but without the 501c3, that's
Yeah.
been our hindrance.
Right.
It really has put a stumbling block in our path to do a lot of the things that we would like to do. But I had assurance from Congressman Keating today that they will be on it tomorrow.
It's a great little website you have going on there too.
Yeah.
I was playing around on it. So.
We're getting there. It's been slow coming, but it's been deliberate. This committee has enormous ideas, wonderful ideas. We just know we can't do them all, so trying to weed them out and put them together and then come up with financially, can we afford to do it? That's been the issue. What can we afford to do? We don't want to do something that we can't afford to do, so we want to be very deliberate and very careful. But we want to make it a fun time, so the 6 weekends, there will be something going on every weekend.
Great.
And then I think we are all going to take a much-needed
Long
rest.
vacation.
Yeah, I think you'll need one.
Then you get ready for town meeting in October.
Yes. Yes, and in between, yeah. It all falls in there somehow. In a road race and a couple of scholarship things, and we're all everybody on the committee has many irons in the fire, and like I said, bless them all because they all really have worked hard. It's just been a wonderful committee to work with, and they're all enthusiastic and they're out there. I think Rudy started this morning at 8:30 with Dana Ferrier-Moeller at the University of Bridgewater. They are very interested in getting involved and helping. And then he had a meeting. He had 2 or 3 meetings all day, which is why he's not here tonight. And I said, look, you know, you need to stay home, put your feet up. So everyone has been on the go every day. Not as hard as Claire. No.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your efforts, and let us know when that 501c3 comes through.
Oh, we
We'll
will.
get an announcement
You will
out.
hear the bells ringing.
Okay.
You will hear us. So, you know, don't forget, order your knickers and your vests for the ball, and your hats, your dress. We can give you a seamstress to call if you want something made. Anybody out there that's looking for period costumes, we have the resources to give you leads on. So we expect to see you in your finest. Bob is expecting you to be well dressed.
Black tie.
With knickers?
With knickers.
I don't know about the knickers, but formal wear.
Don't forget that in British English, knickers are something else.
Yes. Reaches. Reaches. So.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
We appreciate all the work.
We'll
on
be
behalf
back
of the
in
town.
another month or so and let you know, as we firm up more. So.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Exciting.
Mr. Chairman, as the next group is coming up to set up, this is really I know that we didn't brush over it intentionally, but I contacted, actually I didn't contact him. He sent me the information. My hip was buzzing from Billy Ellis. As many Onset residents know, as I am one of them, that Chief Anderson has been a pillar in our village come on up and start setting up the place. He's been a hero to many in Onset, protecting our families and our homes, and as many know, he hasn't been feeling well, and that's an understatement.
Yes.
And in honor of his service, on September the 8th, we got the right date now, it's on a Sunday afternoon, from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Elks Club over there near Cumberland Farms. They're going to have a gathering to celebrate his leadership in Onset in the fire district. Tickets will be $35 per person. I did speak to Billy last week, and I wasn't here Tuesday, so I did ask him where some of the board members may have some personal connection to Howie, that in respect to those members of the board, that he asked the chairman to address the group and offer other selectmen an opportunity to say something if they so choose about Howie, because many are friends. And the only thing that we ask is that, the comments are short, right? Because typically the chairman addresses, but Howie's a special guy, and he's going to be very sorely missed by many in the entire town of Wareham, but particularly in Onset.
No.
So I figured I'd get the right information out, because this is only 2 weeks away.
Yes.
And we didn't brush over it. It was just nobody had all the facts, so I got them for you right now.
Okay. Thank
you for your indulgence.
Thank you for getting that information out to us. Very much appreciated. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. I'm pleased to be here today. And I have some colleagues of mine. To my right is Christine Sapinski, who is from the Waterfield Design Group. And the Waterfield Design Group has been functioning as the consultant on Merchants Way design concepts. And over on the far right, we have Frank Gay, who is the Chief Administrator for the Greater Attleboro Taunton Transit Authority. We're here today to make a presentation and continue the dialogue that we started back in, I think it was in May, when we started the dialogue regarding the Merchants Way redesign concepts. One of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention, in a minute I'll hand you a couple of pieces of paper, but one of the first things I wanted to bring to your attention is that the town of Wareham back in 2006 procured the services of the Cecil Group, and they put together a Wareham Village strategy. And that document, when I first got here, now almost 18 months ago, when I first got here, I did a search of all of the plans of the area, and that was one of the plans that I reviewed. And that plan is the stimulus for the work that we're doing today. It's a continuation of that effort. And I wanted to bring that to people's attention because I think it's really important for people to understand that that a lot of what we're doing is not new. It comes from the impetus of that plan back in 2006, and I prepared for you. I took some excerpts from that plan, which I wanted to share with you. Obviously, not for you to read today, but some things that I think would help to give you a background on what we're trying to do today. I think the second point I'd like to make is that we are not here today to ask the Board of Selectmen for any action on any of the work that we're doing. What we're here today really is it's an informational session, and it's to present to you the work that's gone on thus far. Third point that I'd like to make is that the difference between concept drawings and plans. Throughout the process, we have tried to stress to folks that these are simply concepts. And the idea here is to try to put down on paper ideas so that we can discuss them. And they are very far from any kind of plans. So as you see the work that Christine will present to you today, Christine will review with you the process that we went through and help you to understand where we are. I think after you've had a chance to look at this work and digest it a little, I'd like to come back at some future date to get some guidance from you on how you'd like us to proceed going forward. Final point, I met with Town Administrator Frank Gay, and I met with the Town Administrator prior to our meeting to discuss some of these ideas and to make sure that we were moving in a direction that our Town Administrator was comfortable with. And we had some very good discussions, and I think it's really important for all the folks watching to understand that one of the things that I hope to do as I do my job is to continue to build partnerships. And Frank represents a very important partnership, I think, for our community. Frank's done lots of infrastructure work in transportation. He's done it in a number of towns. He comes with a great deal of experience, and he comes with a network of relationships, and he also comes with some funding opportunities for us. So I think that's really important for us as we look at the potential for redesign of the area known as Merchants Way. And I'm sorry, there's one other point which I'd like to be clear on. I did some research on Merchants Way. It was actually in the original Cecil Group documents that you'll find. One of the things that was clear in that document is that Merchants Way is, in fact, a parking lot. I know our town planner had some concerns about whether or not we owned property. We're in the middle, as you know, of doing a survey of the area back there to establish the lines. But the property was deeded to us by the New Haven Railroad Company. There is no formal road layout of the property. I did some research with the town clerk. So it is, in essence, a parking area that resides behind Main Street. So I think that that's important for everybody to understand because as we look at it, it having it be a parking lot creates a different set of opportunities than had it been a formally accepted road. So what I'd like to do is, and I've been asked by Bob to turn the lights down so that the fans out in the audience can get a real good view of the presentation. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Christine, have her do the presentation, and then if you have questions at the end, we can do that. Let me hand these out, and I'll go shut the lights. Or
Yeah, probably.
So I want to first thank you for this opportunity and the time on your agenda to focus on the Merchants Way improvements. We've been working on this for quite a while now, since April actually. Our team is, half of the team is sitting right here. The town of Wareham, your Community Economic Development Authority, SERPED, GATRA, Frank is here. We've been retained by all of these bodies to work on these conceptual plans and to work with your community to take them through a series of conversations about what the possibilities and opportunities are, what the challenges are. The goals that we've started out with and that we've been using as we've been moving through this project are to create a more vibrant Wareham Village through improving Merchants Way. You've done improvements on Main Street to start to revitalize that area. The 2008 Cecil document that Salvador just handed you copies of has started that conversation. We're continuing that conversation on how to create a more vibrant village downtown. To create that, we're creating a healthy balance between automobiles, buses, trains, bikes, pedestrians, all of the transportation modes that are currently and will in the future use that area. We want to create a more livable, pedestrian-friendly area where people can feel safe, comfortable, to meet, to shop, even to live downtown, and create opportunities to connect to the waterfront in order to both celebrate the waterfront and to turn our backs away from the waterfront to unlock the potential that is there that right now is not being used to revitalize that waterfront and to also improve the water quality. The Wareham waterways in that area, both the Agawam and the Wankinko, are both Category 5, which is a very compromised waterway, so anything we can do as we do these improvements can help with that. We've held a series of meetings and workshops where we've been looking at different circulation patterns. We've been looking at how to balance parking, the different challenges we see back there, looking at some of the opportunities that the community sees. So we had a department heads meeting back in April. We met with the town boards and commissions. We've met twice with the business and property owners, once with the general public. We've been meeting consistently with our team, and now we're here before you as one of our final meetings and to see how we're going to move forward. So the focus area, as you all know, is this 1/3 of a mile length area. It's only about 1,800 feet long between the Narrows Bridge and Sandwich Road up to the fire station and Sawyers Road. This area has some wonderful opportunities with vistas coming down off of Sawyer Road, Chapel Street, Center Street, looking straight out into the waterway. We want to try to maximize those opportunities and look at how to turn this into more of a streetscape. We looked at some of the overall context. Merchants Way that we're focusing on is only 1/3 of a mile, and it is only 1/3 of a mile, which is a 5-minute walk, away from a number of very key destinations and facilities. The town hall, the library, the high school, the middle school. Betsy Park is adjacent to this area. Tremont Nail Factory is only 1/3 of a mile away. There's a large number of residential areas in very close proximity to this site. And there's a number of really strong connectors. The railroad is one of the strongest connectors and one of the most immediate concerns right now, I think, as the train is starting to become reactivated. Hopefully a stop will happen here in Wareham at one point. So the train is one of your big connectors, bringing people through and possibly dropping them off here and picking them up here. The river itself is a connector. Both of these, the river as a connector is also incorporated into a regional bike plan. The bike plan that is going to connect Bourne with Wareham and with Marion, the South Coast regional bike plan is in the planning stages, and it goes right through this area. So we're looking at not only this small area, but the connections outside of this area and how important they are to this area. Some of the challenges as we started working on this project and as we've been moving through have surfaced even stronger. The renovation of the train depot is one of the challenges and an opportunity. We see that we could expand transportation options there, maybe with bus service, with GATRA, even with bringing small boats and docks into that area, bringing bikeways through that area. So there's a number of ways that we can use that train depot, not just as a train depot, but as kind of a multifaceted transportation area, small in nature. We're not talking about a regional facility here. We're talking about a very small depot that will service at first a very small 3-car train. Parking needs is a challenge, of course, balancing that with making streetscape improvements and with also making water quality improvements. And it's a fine balance between taking pavement out, putting green space in, putting in sidewalks versus very wide parking aisles and driving aisles. The other challenge is waterfront access, balancing that with protection of the rivers and the waterfront. The last challenge that has been one of the most challenging is creating a shared vision between improving public property and private property and the overlap areas between those two in the Merchants Way area. So some of the opportunities I'm going to run through rather quickly. We're going to try to keep this to a 15-minute presentation. Renovating the train depot and expanding transportation options. When the train does come here, we want to make sure that that depot is ready for them, that there are restrooms that are usable. So renovating the depot building itself, renovating the restrooms, bringing them up to code, making sure the pavement is accessible. Then there are opportunities to possibly expand that building to have a commercial use, maybe a coffee shop or cafe, additional seating, an information kiosk that both is a business directory for the merchants and also an information about the train schedules, about the bus that could be coming there. Transforming this area into a bus passenger facility where AL can start to service New Bedford, which is a very critical link for your community that's missing right now. Offering bike facilities, bike storage, so the people that do want to take alternate transportation, that want to bike here, get on the train, bike here, get on a bus, that opportunity can exist. Right now, your train depot needs a little bit of work. Renovating that, we looked at a floor plan of what's existing now, which is the yellow area. We have an open outdoor pavilion, as you know. Putting seating out there would be nice, an information kiosk. Possibly transforming the restrooms into an outdoor cafe, opening up the walls with windows that look out onto the waterfront, and moving the restrooms to the rear of that area, renovating the building itself. This is what maybe a small cafe could look like inside. It could be a chain, it could be an individually owned or leased space. But the restrooms, putting the restrooms behind that space gives us an advantage of security. When the cafe closes, the restrooms also close, which is something that's not existing there right now. So maintenance of the restrooms, security, safety could be managed much easier if that was in the rear area. So that's one of the advantages of possibly expanding that building. On the right-hand side, we could put a plaza with seating outdoors. When the train does stop, an accessible raised platform will be required that's covered, similar to what you see here. That is actually the Cape Flyer train, I think. So you can see how high up the platform will need to be. Bringing buses back there. The OWL buses are rather small buses compared to some of the casino buses that are stopping there now, or to the Peter Pan buses that could also use that facility. But OWL is looking for possibly 4 buses to stop and then go in 4 different directions, timed with when the train stops. Right now they're picking people up on Main Street mostly. Bike facilities can be very simple, or they could be longer-term storage facilities. Some of the opportunities for creating a vibrant streetscape. And you've seen most of these on Main Street. Having traffic calming, shorter crosswalks that are more visible, wayfinding signage specifically to show people where parking exists, where they should be going, pedestrian scale lighting versus the large Copperhead lights that were out there, street trees, furnishings, bringing in public art, possibly some of the historic things that the previous speaker just spoke about could be incorporated into Merchants Way and Main Street, providing areas for seating, festivals, farmers markets, future cart vendors, putting in green infrastructure, which we didn't put a lot of that in on Main Street, but we have more opportunities along Merchants Way to really improve the water quality, and that's a key point of this project. Looking at things like consolidating and screening the dumpsters, since this is right now the rear of the buildings, and we want to kind of turn it around and make this the front door, because this is where the train is passing. Like it or not, this is where they're already passing, and this is what they see of Wareham when they pass. So whatever we can do to encourage both private and public improvements would help the whole image of Wareham, we think. Separating the bikeway so that maybe there's a shared use path that pedestrians use, bikes use, rather than just having a shared lane in the road, could be an advantage for safety and for function. So your Main Street improvements, you're well aware of what's happening there. Extending those around to the back, maybe using a more nautical light, bringing banners in. I think Salvador's already working on banners with the merchants. Bringing art into the picture, maybe with things in the streetscape, things on the walls. There's a lot of different ways public art can come in. Making the crosswalks very visible. Making gateways, specifically the one coming down to the train station, is a very key, visually compelling area that we're looking at possibly converting that into a green alley so that that would not be for vehicles but just for pedestrians. And this is an example of what a gateway could look like. You don't have a theater walk, of course, but you could have a Merchants Way walk, something that would bring people down through that area. Offering cafe seating areas on sidewalks that really enliven the streetscape and make a community more vibrant. This is an example of a screened, consolidated dumpster area, so it can be much more visually appealing. Bringing in green infrastructure. These are rain gardens that infiltrate stormwater from parking lots. Bringing a multi-use boardwalk system along the river could be a wonderful asset for Wareham. It could continue all the way down to Tremont Nail when that's developed and be part of the connection to both Marion and Bourne. And this is the type of boardwalk we're thinking of. But there's lots of possibilities for that. So accessing the waterfront, there's lots of opportunities there. I've touched on some. Creating a restricted pedestrian crossing is a very key portion of that. Right now, as you know, people cross wherever they want to. There's no fencing. Blue crab harvesting takes place. Fishing takes place. Now that the train is going through, that's a very unsafe situation. Eventually, the rail lines will require that fencing be put up, and that if a pedestrian crossing is to be made, that needs to be licensed. So we want to be ahead of the game, which is why we're starting this conversation. That already started in 2008, I think, with the Cecil study. They also touched upon having a much more restricted rail crossing. Bringing a pathway and a boardwalk along the side of the water makes sense, so the rail crossing would connect to that. Having viewing areas off of that boardwalk, possibly a pier that has a pavilion, having a small dock so that boats can also access here. We understand that it's a very good kayaking river in the area, the Wankiko River and in the Agawam, and enhancing views from Main Street down to this corridor. So these are some of the images of what we're thinking of: a pavilion, fishing platforms with rails that make it easy to fish, a floating dock system, something that makes it easy for small boats to come on and off. So the conceptual plans, I'm going to start with what we have existing and then overlay the conceptual plan on that. So these are, again, conceptual ideas. It's a vision that was created after going through this public process and hearing what the merchants wanted, what the community wanted, what your department heads and bodies wanted. So this is coming off of Sandwich Road, where you would enter Merchants Way. The conceptual plan is looking at a one-way instead of a two-way circulation system here coming off of Main Street. As you can see, it's mostly paving right now, from the railroad lines all the way up to the back of the Hess building, the Cumberland Farms. It's a very expansive sea of paving right now. The sewer treatment building is very visible over there on the upper right. The entrance is very wide. So what we're looking at is narrowing that entrance a bit, but still having it wide enough for truck radiuses, fire truck radiuses. We've been working with the fire chief in talking about what the requirements are. And this plan, of course, will continue to go through their office to make sure we're meeting their needs. The sewer pump station could be screened a bit, and working with Guy, he said they don't go in there that often, so a stabilized lawn instead of pavement can help start to improve water quality, some infiltration in that area. We're keeping parking. We're actually looking at different configurations of parking here so that we can increase it instead of just having wide expanses of paving, breaking that up with trees, with landscape islands, with walkways, so that this becomes an extension of the streetscape, that it's a more pleasant environment for people to walk through. A raised crosswalk that then connects to a sidewalk over on the railroad side. This area would have a fence along that sidewalk that would separate the rails from people walking and from the parking. Coming up into the next area, we have some renderings also of this area. So this is what it looks like right now. The overhead wires we're hoping can come down. You see the very wide entrance there and the straight-on views of the sewer building. So we're looking at putting in a crosswalk there, starting to screen the sewer building and the parking, and bringing pedestrians through there on an actual sidewalk, so that it's still a parking lot, but it's a comfortable streetscape through the parking lot. Taking the next section that goes up towards the train depot, Webster Hall, the second alley, but the first significant alley. Again, you can see the expanse of paving from the back of buildings all the way up to the train platform, which is on both sides of the train there. It runs about 800 feet. We want to try to break that up a bit, bring in some green space. This is where we're looking at expanding the train depot off to the left towards the fire station. Off to the right and the left, we're looking at bus queuing areas, outdoor seating. This is where we're looking at having the pedestrian crossing right behind the depot, coming out to a pier with possibly a pavilion. And these are all conceptual ideas. So, you know, they certainly would be phased, and some may go, some may not go. Having a dock in this area, the harbor master thought this would be one of the best areas for it along this stretch because of water currents. Having a boardwalk bikeway that's lit along this area. Turning the alley in this area into a green alley so that you have that visually compelling draw down to the train station and have that strong connection to Main Street. And we did some rendering specifically in this area because this is one of the key areas. So this is the before and after of what the back of the train station could look like, with the pedestrian crossing, with the boardwalk in that area, with some outdoor seating, some type of pedestrian and vehicular barrier, whether it's a bollard or fencing through this area. I think a bollard would work much better along the platform area because you want access for pedestrians. That's very clear here. But on the boardwalk side, the very invisible fencing could help you restrict access to the railroad. Another view, looking at the raised crosswalk that could be put in at the alley, some type of gateway through that area, opening up the building with windows and a cafe there. You can again see the bus queuing, the raised covered platform in the distance. And the alley itself, what this could look like if you turn it from a paved alley into something that's a little bit greener, a little bit more festive, maybe artwork on some of the buildings, historic images that can be painted or somehow put onto buildings, could be something that is considered in this type of area. Cafe seating at the entrance. The next area from the train station towards the fire depot captures the second alley, which we're looking at keeping that as a vehicular alley so that you still have some circulation in the middle part of this area. Again, it's mostly paving. You have some parallel parking in this area. And I want to point out behind TD Bank, some of the property lines, the private property lines actually are in the middle of where Merchants Way is right now. So we're looking at taking Merchants Way out of private property, putting it back onto public property. And you'll see that's why we kind of have that swing out towards the water and we lose a bit of parallel parking in this area. But the private parking lots would potentially get a bit larger because they would take back their land possibly. Now, when the survey's finished, we'll know for sure where the property lines are. We're using assessor's maps right now. So we would extend the bikeway, extend the parking, the sidewalk, some of the lighting underground, the overhead wires, until we get now to the end area. This is where the Getty gas station is. Right now, let me go back one. Oh, it didn't show the existing. Right now, this is a very wide open parking lot that people crisscross through. It's quite dangerous, actually. Behind the Getty gas station, there's no clear circulation. So putting in islands with trees and sidewalks will help contain that and keep the circulation going in the one-way pattern that we're looking at. At the fire station, we're looking at a two-way pattern to make sure that the fire trucks have access in emergencies, can get over to the fire department office where the boats are kept underneath for emergencies. Again, we have parking, another bus stop possibly in this area, a small overlook. All the overlooks and the piers would have steps down so people that want to do blue crab harvesting, access the waterfront still could, but it's a bit more protected. So those are the concepts that we have come up with so far. We're looking now to get some of your feedback, find out what our next steps might be. I thank you for your attention. It was a little longer than 15 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, I just
Yes.
wanted to add a couple of things. As you know, we run both services for seniors and people with disabilities in town through our dial-a-ride system, but we also operate the Onset Wareham link, or what we call the OWL service, as well as service from Onset area up to Lakeville to the train station. We've been operating for a number of years using the Wareham Cranberry Plaza as our kind of our hub where the 3 or 4 buses meet every hour and people can make connections to get to different areas of the town. You know, this would allow us to have a home right in the downtown. It would bring our services and our connections right into the center of Wareham, and I think it would have some very beneficial impacts for both housing and people that live in the downtown to get around. We're in conversations now with the Southeastern Regional Transit Authority down in New Bedford to talk about a connection from Wareham to New Bedford. It would allow us to be available for when the train does come in to make those connections for people getting off the train to get to various areas, whether it's to get to Waterwiz for the afternoon with their kids or go to Onset for the day or just travel around the Wareham area by using our bus system. You know, I think it's an opportunity for us and for the town to work together to make the renovations to the train station. As I think Christine and Sal both said, you know, these are really just concepts, and once we get your approval to move ahead, you know, we would start a real design process and look at different options for the station, pedestrian access, the handicap boarding access for the trains, all projects which we have done with the MBTA in the Attleboro-Mansfield area. So we're familiar with the issues that come up with providing commuter rail service or train service to a particular station and can work with them. And you know, we can also bring some federal and state money for this capital project to be brought to fruition. So I think on behalf of GATRA, we've been excited about this. It gives us that opportunity to finally find, you know, a hub in the downtown area of Wareham and realign our services.
Well, thank you. Questions from the board? I know there must be some after that lengthy presentation. It was a pretty comprehensive redo.
I have The fire station, the conceptual plan is, I guess it's your last slide. The parking lot to the right of the building only holds about, I don't know, 12 or 15 vehicles at best. We have a call service as well as a career service, firefighters. This doesn't leave them any place, doesn't leave those responders any place to park.
The 15 spaces are still reserved for the fire department. They're just, they're lined right now in the plan. Is
Right,
this on?
but what I'm saying is, if in an emergency situation, if there's more than one call and there's backup required, then other people come in and that lot is full and the firefighters use to the left of the building now.
Yeah, we've left that lot that's off of Main Street for the firefighters, and we've left that whole strip of parking that's reserved for them now. We've left that reserved for them, and we've given them the two-way so that they can actually park more fire trucks there too if there's an emergency that requires help from outside, where more firefighters are coming in. So we haven't touched that parking. All we've touched is the lot beyond that. That's a wide open area right now.
I don't mean to be difficult, but I think what you've actually done here is plant a row of trees right where most of the firefighters park, the call guys.
Oh, do you see the diagonally slashed areas right adjacent to the building? That's what they have reserved right now.
Yeah, but
that's what they told us they needed for firefighters to come in.
That's all they needed.
They told us that is what they needed and that's what they have reserved. But when, you know, lots of fire trucks come in, they're using other portions of that lot and would park up the two-way roadway, I would think, completely in order to gain access for their trucks. And they use the lot off to the right on Main Street.
So how do you access? First of all, who bought the Getty gas station at the auction that was held a month and something ago?
Oh.
Please.
There's no new owner listed.
So the bank owns it?
My understanding is Getty is still the owner of the property.
Okay. How do you get into the space behind Getty? I'm sorry.
I have it here also.
Okay, it's this space right here. There's a...
Yes, you get into that off of the roadway that has the parallel parking next to the fire department. That red strip is just a crosswalk. So the one-way system would continue along the top portion of the drawing there.
Yep.
And then it would take a 90-degree turn towards Main Street through that parallel parking area, just as it does now, actually, except it's two-way right now. I think actually that strip is one-way, but people use it however because it's wide open.
Okay, and in general, how do food delivery trucks, or any delivery trucks for that matter, disgorge whatever it is that they're delivering and not completely block off the very small, I mean, I know it's not to scale, but
So right
you gotta
now,
all be driving minis or something.
no, right now there is what we've shown is a loading area. If you turn to the one that has the train depot on it, to that image, I can try to guide you through that. If you look to the left side of your paper where there's the two white buses, there's the train depot and there's a bus queuing area. Are you on this one? I'm sorry. It's towards the back of the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look at that, and if you go to the right portion, I'll point here so people can follow if they want to. I can also bring in the big boards from outside if it's easier.
So, while they're doing this exercise, turn that back on.
Sure.
So the,
Screen up. It's in the presentation.
it is.
Yeah,
No.
No.
Just one row.
The computer might take a minute to turn on. Oh, there it is.
But what my comment is that okay, so where do the delivery trucks do their thing?
Okay, there's a loading area that we've shown. Let me get to that slide. And we've actually dedicated that area. Okay, so if you look, I'll go up and point. It might be easier. Here's your train depot right here, and you have your two buses queuing here. This is drop-off for the train depot. This is a loading area. So the jug shop specifically talked about loading needs and being able to have a truck back into there. So this would allow a truck to unload for the merchants here, some of the merchants up in this area, and to also back into this area. So this is one of the loading areas.
So these crosshatch things are the loading areas?
Yes, in this particular area, that's a loading area.
And then the one,
These are actually for the bus
no,
queuing.
if you do like 4 spaces beyond to,
These ones
yep,
here?
yep.
That could be for smaller trucks to unload. It could also be to access possibly consolidated dumpster areas. This is all private property here, so we didn't show a whole lot in there, but the idea is instead of taking up 5 spaces with dumpsters, because right now they have slashed areas for the dumpsters, and they're actually taking up prime parking spaces in that area. So if we could consolidate them and screen them, we could take up less parking spaces. You would still need to keep those spaces open by painting diagonal stripes so that people don't park in there. So those could also be loading spaces for smaller trucks for deliveries. If you go back to this, and you can even see on this, you can see some of the striped spaces that they have right now. Those are for either dumpsters or for loading zones. So we're not taking those away. We definitely know that the businesses will need that. In this area, we're actually keeping a lot of the pavement here behind Cumberland Farms. The loading area along the right side of Cumberland Farms, I think, is where they're unloading right now. Am I correct? So that would still be there. We're not really touching that area, even though that's a private way right now. Do you see where I'm talking about? I could go up and point. I don't have a pointer, unfortunately.
It's to the right of the Cumberland Farms. As you look at the Cumberland Farms, on the right-hand side of the building is where the trucks unload now.
That's where they unload now?
That's
That's where
correct.
they unload
So
now.
the pictures I see of 18-wheelers pulled up over the curb on Main Street, is that fantasy?
No, that's not a fantasy. What happened?
I didn't think so.
No. But let me explain that we have corrected that for 2 things. One is the day that happened, we caught that picture. We had that picture sent to Cumberland Farms headquarters. The guy got reprimanded that was in that truck, and we have since added a sidewalk and car stop so that cannot be done anymore.
So last night when I was down there at Cumberland Farms, and you have
Use the mic.
and you have the sidewalk, because I was concerned about this myself, and you have the sidewalk, right? And then you have this concrete that comes up south.
Those are
That's-
car stops.
Right. And the top of that got all ground off. How?
I'm imagining maybe somebody might have backed out of the parking lot. Maybe
Well, you
scrape
can't
out
go
of it.
over that with a car.
Well, again, we put it
I
there.
mean, it was the
we put it there
concrete
to
is-
stop the truck. That was specifically installed for that reason.
Right. Well, you get a chance, because I stopped there last night to look at that. When you're coming up Main Street from here, right? Turn left into Cumbies. And that block of concrete.
Right.
Right
Those
as
are all
you
car
first going
stops.
in,
Yep.
it's all ripped off on the top. So something is still going up over that, making contact with it.
Yeah, my
It's
suspicion.
not a car.
Well,
Can't be a car.
well,
No.
again, we've addressed the truck as we saw it.
But it can't be a car doing that. That car would be demolished and on Vaughn's,
Well, I
Vaughn's
suspect that some
flatbed.
of them are, to be frank with you. I think that what's happening is some of the bottoms of cars are going over those and they're rubbing up against them.
Well,
So keep in mind that this is a conceptual plan. So there's a lot of, things to still work out. Parking will move around, loading will move around, but we've tried to balance right now parking needs with loading needs, with transportation needs. with water quality needs because of the compromised water quality you have right now. So all of these things, you know, we're not maximizing parking, we're not maximizing green space, we're not removing loading areas, we maybe aren't adding many loading areas. So we're trying to balance all of that. We've heard the community and their concerns, and this plan has tried to pick a balanced line and address those concerns.
Okay, and just one last question. On any one of the conceptual plans, there's a barrier between the parking lot, the rails, and then the walkway or the riding way or whatever. So
yes, when you get to the platform area, which this illustrates, the platform is a pedestrian area. So what you're trying to prevent are cars from riding up onto the platform, onto the rail lines. So we're looking at possibly a low guardrail, maybe something a little nicer than what you have right now. Some areas could have standalone bollards that are spaced close enough together to prevent cars from going through. But we want pedestrians to be able to go through. So we're not putting a solid fence in a lot of those areas. When they're adjacent to vehicular areas, we're putting a vehicular barrier. So in other areas, if I go backwards to this one, in this area, for instance, you would have possibly a 4 or 5 foot high nice metal fence. It doesn't need to be chain link. It could be something a lot nicer, like a picket fence or a more invisible looking square grid wire fence. You've probably seen those. That could be the barrier between the rails and where you see the sidewalk along the top of the parking there. So that would be an area where you would have a solid fence. There's no platform in this area, so you're preventing both pedestrians and cars from accessing those lines. And on the opposite side, where you see the boardwalk, the multi-use trail there, that is intended to have a railing along both sides to keep people on the boardwalk so that there is no safety issues with them crossing the rails at at unsafe areas. We want them to cross at the one restricted crossing. And it would also prevent them from going to the waterfront everywhere. There would be specific points where they would access the waterfront, and we could make sure that those points are stable and that those are good points for them to access.
So the riprap between Narrows Road and the train track, that would be an area that is still wide open. The pier-ishy thing would be available by the bike path.
Yes.
And the other one near the station itself would be available through the station. That's sort of a wide open access.
Yes, let's go up to that one. These are great questions. I know it's confusing to understand a plan that has so much on it. So in this area, where you see the boardwalk coming towards the railroad tracks in the center of the depot, that's where the crossing is intended. So there would be fencing coming down both sides of that boardwalk, up to about 10 feet from the rail lines. Then you would have the concrete in between the rails like you see near Center Park where there's a vehicular crossing. And then on the other side, it's an open platform between the train building and the tracks. And you have that situation, an open platform for pedestrians to access the train when it stops for 800 feet, which we would keep that 800 feet. I don't think the Cape Cod rail lines would want us to diminish that, even though they're only going to have 3 cars possibly stopping sometime in the future.
If I could just add a couple of things. First of all, none of this is a plan. If I can't say that enough, this is not a plan. It is a set of ideas. That's the first thing. Second thing I really want to say is anything that goes on those rails has the approval of the railroad. They have the right of way for, I want to say it's 45 feet. So they decide what goes on. If you look at the deed, and I know from talking with Selectman Slavin, if you look at the deed where the land was deeded to the town, one of the things that's very clear in that deed is that the railroad's engineer will determine what is necessary to put there. So all of the conversation that we're having, while I think it's really helpful and good to talk about it, people, I want to remind folks that none of this is a plan. I would never use that word associated with these. These are ideas, ways in which one might visualize how that area could look and how we might treat it going forward.
And when we do go forward, hopefully, that's one of the first steps, is to start to talk to some of the permitting agencies, the railroad, the environmental groups, to find out what is possible. This is kind of the wish list of what could be, but it may not all even be possible. We are within their right-of-way. It's a 49-foot right-of-way in this area that's split on both sides of those tracks. So the existing parking back there is in the right-of-way. The existing telephone poles, the existing wood guardrail that you see are all within the train right-of-way. So we're assuming that they're going to allow a similar use, but they may say no. We think they want to work with us, but...
Thank you.
Selectman Slavin?
One quick question before I go to the core. The on Fagatra, we have a couple buses and a couple buses forward and a couple back. And I know we're going to have a rain garden area to the right of the train station going down a ways. And one of the reasons for that is for stormwater remediation, which is a requirement coming in 2014 for the town. Looking at that, are the two buses to the right of the train station going to be loading and unloading at that location?
Yes, you need a 10-foot depth area for them to unload and load, and we have that in that area and on the other side.
Okay, that is a rain garden, and that is in there, and that's going to have basically grass, whatever. What are you going to do with a handicapped person coming off a bus or getting on then?
If you're looking at this plan, let me point out the area to make sure it's clear.
It shows a rain garden, that's what it's...
These are the two buses.
Yeah?
So this is a paved area. That's those are like cafe outdoor tables where people can sit.
Okay.
This is your 10-foot depth that you would need, and this also has the 10-foot depth. The areas in landscape would be here, and that could be a rain garden. We're looking at going underneath the pavement also with infiltration. This would be a combination. This also on this side.
I have one question. The Conservation Commission, I thought what they saw for stormwater remediation that you've gone before them, they're working on, shows the rain gardens being a lot bigger than what you're showing there then. The plans aren't the same.
No, actually, the plan that you saw that went before the Conservation Commission was looking at a lot of underground activity. One of the things that we're doing with our survey is we've done borings into the ground, and we were very pleased to find that we only found in the initial borings that we did, we only found one area that had contamination, and it was very light contamination. The other areas showed a reasonable groundwater depth of 4 to 5 feet and some good soil in most of the areas. So it may be that we can put a number of the stormwater treatments underground and minimize the amount of stormwater treatments that you put on the surface.
But remember that those plans are also conceptual.
Well, I think they've been submitted to the Conservation Commission as an actual stormwater remediation plan.
As an actual plan now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you need to look at that very carefully. That's just a side point.
Sure.
My philosophy has always been very simple. The answer is why not? Why can't we do this? The issues we have is as we go through each section, we have a lot of stumbling blocks that we have to run into that we don't have control over, namely the railroad, Mass DEP, et cetera, going all the way down the line. We have properties that may or may not change hands in the near future, and then we have a floodplain issue for a lot of the properties. It is a conceptual plan. There's just so many things there and the costs and stuff to make it all work. I think we're going to have to take a hard look at the total cost and come up with something that's rational, because this is going to have to be a multi-phase over a long period of time. It's not going to happen overnight. And I can hit every area and I can give you no, but that's not my philosophy. My philosophy is if there is an issue, how do we get it, how do we do it and do it right? So I thank you for the work. It's an interesting concept to look at. Like I say, it makes one think quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, really. The point of these drawings is to imagine what might be able to exist, and then to look at and match that against the reality of what's there. And I think it's really important. Again, I'm going to say it again. It's not a plan. These are a set of ideas. And so as you look at those ideas, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. The survey needs to be complete so we can learn what the true property lines are. We need to do some test pits in addition to the borings that we've already done to further understand what's under the ground. At some point, if we go forward with any of these ideas, we will need to sit down with property owners one at a time to look at their property and how their property gets impacted. So this is a long this is the beginning of a very long road, and I need to keep emphasizing that, because one of the things that happens is that when we do things like this, people imagine that this is a done deal already, that somehow this is all going to happen. The cost for what you see here is a big number, and I wouldn't even recommend doing everything that you see here. There are things that I personally would recommend and things that I wouldn't recommend. But part of my job is to try to get in front of this board and the other authorities that we work with, the ideas that are there, to get feedback, to go through the process, to make sure that we vet out all of these ideas so we get the best possible product and people make informed decisions.
I just have one more question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
You have the bike share lane all the way down through Main Street. I wouldn't ride a bike down Main Street for $1 million today. So why wouldn't that be in the back, which is now going to be the front?
Well, first of all, part of Merchant's Way is one way as it exists now.
But bikes can...
But bikes have to follow the same rules as cars, and actually
the two-way bike lanes, like down on Onset Avenue.
There's no room. Your Main Street is very tight right now. We looked at different circulation patterns and what would happen if we made that one way, put diagonal parking, put a bike lane. There was a lot of conversation about that. It didn't seem to be the optimal plan, which is why we left it as two-way. And if it's two-way, there's no room for bike lanes, and bikes would have to travel in the travel lane. With today's complete streets requirements for roadway revitalization, you have no option but to share the road with bikes. It's the law now. So it's always been the law, actually, but it's being more enforced now, and it's more welcomed.
So are you saying that the bike lane would be on Main Street? Or?
There's no lane. It's just... the bikes would travel with the cars as they do anywhere where there's no bike lane. They're not allowed on sidewalks usually, so their only option is to drive with cars. And that's what you call a shared bike lane. It's not striped.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes communities that are very actively working with their bicycle communities to improve conditions will mark it and sign it so that vehicles know, or drivers know, that it's a shared road, and to remind them that there are bikes.
Yeah, part of Onset Avenue is like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason that is because it's so wide that you're able to put a lane in addition to having the cars. Remember that most lanes are only 12 feet wide. And most of the roads in this town you'll see are 12-foot wide lanes.
And we're showing Merchant Way a little bit more generous. That's 15-foot wide. At first, if parts of this get phased and the bikeway isn't there, bikes will travel with cars in those lanes, depending, what goes, what doesn't go, what's permitted, what funding is there.
Mr. Sullivan, do you have any thoughts?
We had spoken about it earlier today, but one of the things I didn't know was happening was one of the casino buses. People are parking behind there and going to the casino, and I have a bit of an issue that we basically are just serving as a parking lot right behind, so our merchants are losing
for the parking.
Yeah, our merchants are losing parking area already, and that's one of the things I think we can help them to resolve. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you raised that, Derek, because I think one of the things that we're looking to do is expand some of our work with the Nelson Nygaard Group at looking at the parking in Main Street for that particular reason, because you are, I would argue that as we look at parking, it's not a question. Well, let me say this: the Cecil Group, in that report that I gave you, counted over 800 parking spaces back there. So I don't think it's a question of, and that's all along from CVS, counting from CVS going down Main Street to the Narrows Bridge, about 800 parking spots. And one of the things is it's not always a question of the number of spots, which is what I think Derek's raising. It's a question of the demand, how those spots are being used. And we need to look very seriously at that in addition to the total number of spots and how we might increase those.
You have plans to do that going forward?
I do, absolutely, yes.
Okay. Selectman Holmes, I skipped over.
Yeah, you did.
I apologize.
My comment about Cumberland Farms was an additional comment to Mrs. Whiteside. Listen, I agree with Alan in terms of, I always say, why not? So I think you and I share that vision. I look at this moment as pretty pitches, because in one breath you say there is no plan, and then Alan raised an issue of the underwater train, and there was a plan submitted. So I agree that folks who are working on this and who tout this need to be very careful, because history tells you that these things are done in a vacuum, and you can have a public meeting, but it means zilch, right? You know that.
We've tried
I'm not saying you're doing that.
That's
what I'm saying is that happens.
That does
right?
happen.
So you need to continue to stress this. My point, and again, pretty pictures, I like them. I think we could probably do a lot of these things and really improve the area. So I'm not going to get into specifics because that would legitimize it as a plan.
Mm-hmm.
But my comments would be about your goals, because the fact of the matter is, in your goals, you talk about a village, creating a vibrant village, a healthy balance of vehicles and people. You talk about a pedestrian-friendly area. You talk about creating opportunities to connect the waterfront and water quality. Admirable goals. Then you talk about challenges, and I'm assuming that shared vision goes to Sal's point. And my suggestion to you is that you take the shared vision and make it a goal. It's not a challenge, because you don't get any of this unless you accomplish that goal. Mm-hmm. It's not a challenge to sit down with business owners and meet their needs, because you know what happens? You're either going to have a park or you're going to have a business community with this attitude of goals. I'm not being too critical, but I am in a way, because this is what creates the vision that there's a plan and I'm not involved, because they're considered a challenge on this presentation instead of one of the goals, right? You follow my point?
I do follow your point.
Because they don't own those buildings, most of them. They rent those buildings in your pretty picture. And you take them out of the equation and make them a challenge, guess what? They have the right to go rent somewhere else and conduct business somewhere else, and then we're back to a park. The goal is not to have a park, but to have a vibrant economic center that addresses recreation and relaxation in Wareham, right? So I think if you can change this a little bit, put those people as part of your goal as opposed to making them a challenge, I think that it'll go a long way in having them help you to develop the plan. Those are my comments. And thank you. I mean, this is great, I think. We're going to get a really nice downtown village. I know that. It's how we get there, and I think one of the critical steps that I'm hearing is you take those folks that are there and make them make them worthwhile as a goal, as opposed to labeling them as a challenge. And I think it'll go a long way.
Can I state something to clarify that a bit? I think what we meant by the challenge there was not the people, but the work that would need to be done to change that from a back door to a front door, because a lot of it is on private property, and the overlap between the public and private, the rear facades, the dumpsters.
The people who...
So those are challenges for everyone, not
the people who use that.
For the town and the people.
Right. Well,
yeah.
then somewhere in your...
We can clarify that.
In your pretty pictures, you need to... I don't see anything in there then that includes business owners and the people who keep that an economic engine.
Well, we kept the private property out of this because we can't touch private property without owner's permission. So we didn't show on here possibly a sidewalk and a green space that could be encouraged in an area.
There's your problem, ma'am. There's your problem.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, Chairman
You're getting my point. Because those people down there that are working and running these businesses, 2 public meetings, they're not part of the goal, they're more of a challenge. They need to be your front runners. And if you don't have them front running this for you, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah. Well, let me say a couple of things. First of all, we do have a lot of people who are working with us, and we have a lot of support for those.
Get them in the plan. That's all I'm saying.
No.
Get them in the presentation.
Yeah, but I wanted to make a point. The second point, which was initially we did do that. We did have some people in the plan, and they were concerned.
There is no plan.
No, well, I mean, I'm sorry. That's right. There is no plan. We originally had people in those frames that you see, those concepts, but they asked out. They didn't want to be in those because they said that they weren't able to we weren't able to effectively negotiate because we didn't have a plan and we didn't even know the boundary lines. So they had concerns about. For example, in the beginning, we showed shared parking lots on how, in fact, we could increase the parking by sharing the parking. People had concerns about that because they didn't know where the lines were and those kinds of things. So we opted those out. So I want you. I guess what I want you to understand is I hear you very clearly.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. I've made the rounds. People who know me know I've been in all of those businesses downtown. I've talked to Harry the barber. I've talked to Demetrius. I've talked to Christine over at the Gourmet Gourmand. I've talked to Leanne at Cafe Soleil. So I've done a lot of that work, and I appreciate your point, and we will continue to do that work.
That's correct. Because stopping and seeing them, you know how I feel about that. That's great. And that's what we have to do. But that has to be an ongoing process from A to Z.
Absolutely.
I stopped and talked to him, and we had him in for a couple of meetings. It's not A to Z. You
That's
know
correct.
exactly what
That's
I'm talking
correct. I do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I'm not, I'm saying this is good work, but I think that those people who have invested their money into our village have to be the goal, not the challenge, right? And they can help you in a lot of ways, especially when you figure out who owns what. They're the ones who are going to make or break this in the end. Because it'll be a park, the whole thing, or it's going to be a nice, vibrant community like I see when I travel. And then you can enjoy the waterfront, you go kayaking, go have an ice cream, do your thing, right? That's what you want. You don't just want a park with vendor carts. You want to be able to go to consignment shop, and you want to be, you know what I'm talking about. That's what you need. And when you come back on the next presentation, I would hope that there would be a bunch of people in this room who have invested in Main Street, right? Getting up and saying, hey, Mrs. Whiteside, behind my building, this is what we'd like to see for a loading area. Behind here, this is what we think on the trash use, as Alan's people talk about, right? You want them giving the presentation, and then it's a win-win, right?
We had a lot of participation at the workshops and a lot of that discussion going on. We had 5 workshops with attendance anywhere from a dozen to 4 dozen people. So
well,
we
next
had a
time
lot
you
of
come
that.
here for a public presentation like this, right, before the Board of Selectmen, I'd like to see that.
I think
I think everybody would like to see that. in public.
To your point, I think the next presentation would be via a selectman workshop on the,
I'm with you.
and then we just devote an entire meeting to that. Then all the stakeholders can get in here, give them plenty of notice,
I'm with you.
and we go from there.
I think it's great.
So, thank you for all the hard work. I'm especially interested personally in the transportation components, and you know, to the extent that we can create linkages with other communities, either through the MBTA to Boston eventually, with the Cape Flyer to the Cape, via GATRA to New Bedford. I think that's very interesting. I don't know that this represents the long-term solution for an intermodal transportation center down in that little dinky spot, but it's possibly a decent seed location, I guess is how I'd put it. Eventually, the town's going to have to look at something much bigger in scope. I mean, when you see an MBTA station like North Quincy with you know, hundreds of parking spaces, and you know, people have to walk 300 yards just to get in and off the street to get to the train, you get an idea of the scope of these things. We don't have the room for that down back there. Unless we pave over the river, that's not happening. So, you know, I think the long-term goal for the town has to be...
There is no plan.
The concept. I don't think the concept addresses that. How's that? There we go. I got to get the word plan out of my head, I guess. But I am heartened that you're here, Mr. Gay, to look at these things, to speak with Mr. Pina, and to sort of get in on the ground floor of the concept. Selectman Slavin?
There's one overlying point that's been a problem from day one. When we've offered businesses redoing the front of their buildings and offering them a percentage to go ahead and do it, the businesses have been too weak to take advantage. Even what's gone on in Merchants Way in the front of Main Street, some businesses had issues. I think what's going to be a very important component to all this is expanding this out and looking at the stakeholders and looking at what their situation is and coming up with plans either through state or federal for redevelopment of their buildings, etc. Places when they basically lose business for 3 or 4 months during construction, giving them a low-interest loan doesn't help because they've lost money. They still have to pay it back. So you're going to have to come up with something, you know, in some programs that are maybe a little outside of the norm, where there's somewhere it comes back so the business can afford to make the changes and can afford to absorb 3 or 4 months of construction time down, because we've really, honestly, basically put a hurt on a lot of downtown businesses over the last year or so. And some of them will recover, some won't. You know, it's our responsibility, it's our fault as well. So we need to really look at that as much as the idea of what we'll do on the town's part. This is an overall piece for everybody that's involved. Store owners that rent, people who own the property, people who walk up and down the street, etc. So it's really got to be a really hard effort, because you're going to have to look at ways in this tight economy to make it work. You just can't go ahead and just say we're going to do this when the numbers aren't there and the costs aren't there. And one quick little point, the Serpent will be meeting tomorrow with the Bike Path Committee, with the Mass DOT, I believe Mass Rail, etc. So we might have an idea tomorrow what is or what is not capable as far as the bike path. So I'll get you that information tomorrow after the meeting.
If I could just close by just asking you all to please take a look at the document that I provided you today, the 2006 Wareham Village Strategy document. Those are excerpts from that document. It's 140 pages long. I pulled out probably about 15 or 20 pages for you to take a look at. I'd encourage you to please read it. If you want the whole document, I can email the document to you. If you have questions about it, I'd be happy to do that. But I think it's really important, because one of the things to Selectman Holmes' point is that process was vetted out as well. This is not the first time that we've had these conversations with businesses and property owners. So there was an extensive public process along with that. Now that's turned out to be 2006, that's 7 years ago, and we haven't made any progress on it. So
And many people weren't there 7 years ago. Look at the businesses you have there today, right?
Yeah, and that's all true. And I'm not saying everybody had an opportunity, but my point is,
Can you put a link to that on your website?
yeah, actually,
under CETA's website?
this is linked on the town website. This presentation is linked as
Not
we
the
speak.
presentation, Cooper
The
doc.
Wareham Village Strategy Plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's already there, but I'll double check it, okay? I'll double check it. So I just, if you could just do that, I'd appreciate it, and look forward to having further conversations with you on how you'd like to go forward.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sal. Just briefly, one thing. Why don't you talk about your upcoming trip to Cape Verde? To just briefly, just give
Yeah,
give the
sure.
board the 30-second thing, and then I gotta get Jim Newman up here to talk about the
Yeah,
Veterans Day Parade.
very excited about the opportunity to go to the,
Mr. Titlebaum, point of order.
Yes, we'll need a motion to get past 10.
Motion to go past 10 o'clock.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, second by Selectman White. Selectman Holmes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400.
be real quick.
Yeah.
The Bridgewater State University with the Metro South Chamber, which is in Brockton, and the Economic Development Office of New Bedford are partnering together to do a trade mission to the Cape Verde Islands. I've been invited to go along to represent Wareham. I'm ecstatic to have the opportunity to do that, knowing the history here in this community and the possibilities for future economic development. And I think it's really important that the three communities which have the largest Cape Verdean populations, Brockton, New Bedford, and us here in Wareham, would all be working together to try to bring resources back to the towns and cities. So
No.
I'm very excited, and I'm happy for your support, the support of Cedar Board.
Well,
to-
enjoy your trip, and we'll want to hear about it when you come back.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And thank you very much for hanging in there and waiting till this late hour to do your presentation.
Thanks, Frank. It's been a long day for you.
Take care.
I think so. You should have taken care of it. My fault. No, he was here with Bob White.
This is buried on the second page. Next item, please.
Discussion regarding the Veterans Day Parade. Mr. White, you going to come out too? Bob?
Are we on autopilot now?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Apologies for the late hour here.
Yeah, I'm up past my bedtime.
Mine too. Is Sharon available, or is she still medical?
Well, on this Veterans Day parade, excuse me, Bob White now running it because I had to give it up. It got a little too much for me. But what he wants to know is, in the past, I've never had any problem in the past running a parade. When we met out here, if it was raining or anything, we did move right inside, and never any question went on to be the same.
See how it would be any different to you? Well,
Bob, what time is the parade going to be, and what day?
It'll be on the 11th of November if we decide to have one. The point of this whole conversation is to decide, from the town's point of view, what support can you provide? The Veterans Council is a non-funded or non-funding organization. Consequently, if we can't be asked at this point to pay for anything. Last year, it seemed to me that the town got blindsided to some extent because they didn't realize how much extra time on the part of the employees of the town was taken up. And I think that some of the department heads were stunned a little bit by the amount of over expenditure that they incurred. My purpose in being here, along with Jim and Sharon, who's not here tonight, would be to find out to what extent the town is willing to go forward in another year. At this point, we're still talking about a parade, a recognition ceremony, and a luncheon. If the town can't support all of that, then we need to know where the priorities should lie.
Well, I think the person best situated here is our money man. He can address where we stand in terms of being able to support it at the same level as, say, last year, if that's what your question essentially is. So, with that,
yeah, I
Sullivan?
think a selectmen's meeting isn't the opportune time to have that conversation. I would ask that you come in so we can meet with the department heads to see what last year's costs were and figure out where they stand. And this year we request volunteers from our employees so that it's not double time to be paid. upwards of 8 hours, which can get very expensive. And I would hope that we do have some volunteers for this. So I would say if you'd like to set up a meeting to meet with myself and the department heads that are involved with this, such as municipal maintenance, the police, and as far as use of the buildings, that's really no problem. It's always the personnel costs that are the main issue. So if you'd like to set up a meeting with that, I would welcome that sooner rather than later as well, such as you would too.
Absolutely. So
Selectman.
later I will arrange an appointment with you for Sharon and myself and Jim, if he can show up. We'd be happy to do that. But we want to get the dialogue started because time is moving on.
Yeah, I would think
It's getting
if
close.
I'm sorry?
It's getting very close. Time-wise.
Selectman Whiteside?
I would think it a terrible shame if we did not have a parade in honor of our veterans.
I agree,
I would be embarrassed.
as would I.
Yep.
But a parade was not the only thing.
I understand that, and I understand that many of our veterans are unable to walk so that they can ride. But I think one of the things that this country has forgotten is that a lot of people gave a lot so that we can have the freedoms that we do. I think it's outrageous that we don't honor them.
Thank you. Selectman Holmes?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the issue is. If the issue is that Mr. White, we're going to have a parade. We've heard this before. We've talked about this before. If the issue is, the people from the town who do the work, then the Board of Selectmen are not the people to be talking to. The person to be talking to, and this could have taken place since last year, is sitting right there, the town administrator. He rules the departments. That's day-to-day business.
What about him too?
It's not up to the Board of Selectmen. It's up to him. He'll take care of it. I'm sure he'll find a way to support Veterans Day. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah. Selectman Slavin?
I really have no comment. It's something that we should do. We've been doing it right along, and we'll figure it out. Simple as that.
One thing that I think is important to remember is that it's turned into more than just a Wareham event. It's become, I want to say, almost quasi-regional in nature in terms of the people who come out to see it, even some of the participation. So I think it's an important thing to make happen, especially since it's happening here. And I think it's kind of a leadership thing, if you will, in addition to the respect to be shown to the veterans and the memories of those who perished to found and protect this country. I think it's also important for the town as an entity within the region to be behind this and to make sure it continues.
And I think that's part of my point, that we came to the leaders of this community to establish their priority, or to see their priority established, and solicit their support for going forward in a way which the town administrator and the committee might work out. And I appreciate the opportunity to come here and do that.
I have spoken to Mr. Frank Gay there for transportation. He said he would see that we had some kind of buses that anybody that wanted to ride, that any veterans want to ride in the parade, that they were there. Like he volunteered before I even could ask him.
Well, he's left, but hopefully the word will get back that we thank him for that offer.
But he has gotten to me before. Because I serve on the Gatro Transportation Committee too, so that's where he's approached me with it. Told me if I need anything, I'll just call him. Mr. Gay has been very good to the town, I think, with services.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we certainly appreciate that offer and that kind of support. So I'll work with Derek and make an appointment, and we'll work out the details of where we can go with this.
And before Mr. White leaves, feel free to yell, "Please use the mic" at him. You can get some revenge at him.
You're not
Use the
using
mic.
Bob.
Yeah, it's a little different on this side of the booth, isn't it?
Of course it is. The light's on, and I'll shout loudly.
There you go.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you once again.
Thanks, Jim.
And thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you, folks.
Again, sorry for the late hour. Next item, please.
Yeah, my
Next
warden's going to say to me, "Where the hell have you been tonight?" As I was on TV, watch.
Got a good alibi. Thanks, Jim.
Next
Thanks.
item up is the draft signed bylaw. I don't know if anybody's prepared for any
Yes,
comments there.
Why don't we save this one for Monday? We can get into this along with the
Let me make a
TDR.
quick little explanation. We'll go. I met today with George Barrett from the Planning Board. George had some comments on his copy, which I've got. I'm going to basically take that and work on that next day or so and try and get everybody here an updated version with some changes. So this board met on Monday to deal with the TDR, to try and get that done for warrant article, the signed bylaw, and also the marijuana dispensary law. We'll be meeting again on the next Monday with the planning board as well at 6 o'clock in the cafeteria downstairs. So we're working diligently to try and get this all done in time. Appreciate everybody's time. Next item is going to be the vote to ratify contract to Unit 4 and 5 Steelworkers Union.
I'll let Mr. Sullivan speak to this.
We had gone over this in the last executive session, and a couple copies have been circulated, but if anybody needs another copy, they are thick like a Bible, so...
Got mine.
Basically what this has done is the steelworkers in the town, which are the department heads and what's considered the grades 1 through 7, which would be some of the more administrative positions, have never had a contract with the town, even though that they've organized. This would finally give them a contract. It provides all the same things that they currently have, all the same rights. But what it also gives them as part of signing this contract is it will give them a step 6 after 10 years, which is what all the other collective bargaining units have. The cost of that for each unit is a little over $9,000, so about $18,500 total, and we do have the funds available for that, and we'll be requesting a transfer from the collective bargaining line that we've been rolling over for the past several years at the fall town meeting.
Any questions from the board?
Move to ratify the contracts for Units 4 and 5 Steelworkers Union.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 400.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any
next-
town business not expected in the last 48 hours? Mrs. Whiteside? Mr. Holmes? Mr. Slavin is no.
No.
Town administrators report?
I've provided for the board to look over for the next meeting. I really think we should go over it as 2 items of importance. The first one is the town of Wareham 5-year budget projection, and it gives the revenue and expenditure projections. Revenues, we're keeping them, we're being conservative with them as we are with our expenditures. When you look at the expenditures, that is realistically just going up 2% per year for personnel costs and 2% for expenses, which is again extremely conservative because that does not include hiring additional staff for needs, and our revenues are really in line with what's been happening over the last few years. So on the second to last page, and this is obviously, like I said, I'm not looking to go over this tonight, it really tells the tale. If we keep status quo with what we have, we're looking at a deficit of FY15 of 660,000, deficit in FY16 of 1.2 million, FY17 just under 2 million, and FY18 2.86 million.
To my knowledge, though, one of the big differences is moving forward is that we don't, other than having Mr. Paulson come in, Mr. Chairman, I'll remind you about that agenda item again, other than having Mr. Paulson come in to talk about our down the road benefits, right? We don't have anything that we owe like we did this year, right? There's no healthcare trust fund surprises. We don't owe the DOR any money, right? Like we have the last
We
two
haven't
cycles.
borrowed from the trust fund. We put the money back in. We have a consultant to do the trust fund reconciliation so that we're not having any surprises in that. And again, that trust fund's still going to have to be built back up.
I understand, but
yeah.
but what I'm saying is the last two cycles we had these surprises,
Yeah.
so to speak, right? Where free cash was. We had free cash, but because of those issues, we didn't. We don't have any of that coming up that you're aware of.
None that I'm aware of.
I always throw that in because we are in Wareham,
Yeah.
right? And you never know. But as far as any of us sitting here are aware of, in our learned friend, there's none of that coming up.
No, we've paid back. We've borrowed out of the trust fund. We haven't done that this year. We fully budgeted it, including the dental. We're conservative on our revenues, so I don't think we'll be hurt on anything. And we're budgeting what's realistic. So,
because that's important. Because the difficulties we just faced wouldn't have been as difficult if we didn't have that. If we didn't have to pay that, well, there were a couple of bills that we paid, right?
Yeah.
So going forward, if we can try to keep that at zero, so when we do get some certified money, that we can do the things that we're supposed to be doing with that money, not operational stuff,
Right.
but capital and infrastructure and those types of things.
Yeah, some of the questions I get
Be a big help.
are, well, Walmart's going to build, or there's a hotel going to be built, and that's going to bring in a lot of money in inspectional services. You don't budget that because that's an artificial, just one-time outlier. And if you budget that, you're really setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
So.
Selectman Whiteside?
One of the things I'd just like to remind you of, and I'm very pleased that you are so far ahead of the curve right now, remind you to talk with with Ms. Shaverhood, who has indicated an interest in trying to save money by consolidation and reduction of duplication of services.
My Cheshire cat grin is because we've met, and with Mr. McMillan as well, and it was a very good meeting. And we're looking at several projects to work on together. One which people probably haven't seen on the horizon unless we've all been speaking, is the accounting software. That's one of the key items, one that works for the school and the town. And although I can't give you a dollar savings, I can tell you that if you think about the amount of money that we spent over the last four fiscal years because of issues with accounting and our accounting software, they're very measurable. If we have something that we can really work with and use for projections and give us the correct numbers. Human resources, big issue for the town and for the school. That's one of the items. And obviously IT. So what we'd like to do is start focusing on key projects and start actually getting projects done and moving on to the next that we have in the list. So it was an excellent meeting. I look forward to working with them.
Thank you.
The other item, and again, that's just one to go through, is the first expenditure report for FY14. Revenue reports, what I'd like to give to the board is quarterly revenue reports, because with the town, it's with the way we do our billing, revenue reports from one month to the next will not necessarily matter, because you're not receiving either the tax bills and such. So when you do quarterly, it gives you a true outlook and projection. The first month, it's scary to smile, but the first month looks good. So I've given an executive summary through here. The police department, which is one that had caused us a lot of angst at the end of the last fiscal year, is within budget, and we're working with them to actually try and bring on some more officers as well. So that's the first one that's really that we will all look at. And some of these, when I do the report, you'll see on the far right-hand side is the expected percent expended year to date. That's if you really use a straight line projection, figure out what your monthly cost would be. So part of the executive summary, you'll see explaining about why there's a variance or an outlier, why some of the departments are above 8.3%, such as the expenses for the selectmen are at almost 50%, and that's because you have annual dues that you pay in July for your budget, and some are the MMA dues. So that's what's paid every year. Upper Cape Cod Regional, the expenses are at 25% while we pay quarterly payments. Our retirement at 98.9%. Well, we pay that one time per year in a lump sum, and it saves the town over $40,000. So that's just the executive summary. There's simple issues, and again, I would ask that you look through it, and we can go over at the next next report.
In terms of that request, my question is pretty simple. How difficult was it to run the report?
Well, it's not very difficult because we're not working on back issues anymore. We actually have an accounting office that's...
So maybe you give the board the monthly report in a quarterly explanation or something, unless the board never has an issue. If it's not a big deal to run it, run it.
Okay.
Right? And you work on a quarterly explanation. And my second question is, when these are sent to the Board of Selectmen, are they also being sent to the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee has a copy of this as well.
So I'll never hear those words again. We didn't have the numbers. Is that right? Mr. Sullivan.
That is what we're doing now and into the future.
I asked him if when he's sending us these reports, if they're also going to the Finance Committee. And he said, yes. That was your answer, right?
That is.
Because I said, I never want to hear those words again. I'm sick of those words. We didn't have the numbers, right?
Alan's going to get me in trouble. They did receive them before the Board of Selectmen.
There's no secrets here.
No.
It's not about secrecy.
They got to be for us.
It's about just give them the damn reports. That's what I say. But yeah, if you could share it monthly, and then if somebody has a question, they can ask.
Okay.
Does that sound right to you?
One question, Derek. Are we going to long-term change over the healthcare program? We're going to switch to a different system and get out from under the whole thing?
Eventually, we'd like to move it out from self-insured to either one of the groups, Mayflower Group, one of the others. One of the things is you have to have a good-sized fund balance to go into self, like Mayflower Group. You actually needed to purchase into there, which was going to cost over $1 million. Then you needed to hold back. I think the estimate was about $980,000 of an IBNR with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So you needed to essentially have $2 million of liquid cash within the fund to transfer out.
And that would help us down the line with the GASB 45 issue.
It would help us a lot. It would also I've used the terms conservative. It also helps whether it's myself or a future town administrator. You're just receiving realistically a number that you need to pay. We're not trying to determine what we're budgeting and chasing the cycle. So.
Thank you.
Anything else, or are you done reporting?
I'll let everybody go home now.
Well, I think we've had enough.
So real quickly, Mrs. Whiteside, anything from any committees? School, anything?
No, I'll report next week.
Mr. Holmes? I'll do very quickly. I'm sorry to tie everybody up. No, I can't. We've been working for quite a while with the different intern programs with Bridgewater State, with University of Mass Dartmouth. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but we got tremendous news this past week. Wareham and the town of Bridgewater have been selected for what they call an ED-SAT EdStat program, sponsored by Northeast University, the Dukakis Center, and Bridgewater State University. The program is going to be paid for by Bridgewater State University and also AD Makepeace. This program basically goes in and analyzes all parts of the town for economic development everywhere. The end results when you get done, I'll read this quick so everybody can go home. Define or refine economic development strategy and goals. Identify deal breakers and deal makers within the municipality, municipal services. Turn deal breakers into deal makers. Benchmark existing economic development plan. Integrate into a master plan. Integrate into marketing. Kick off for regional collaboration. My favorite, yours. Better understanding of the integration of municipal process. Better understand the economic development process. So we're extremely fortunate. We're one of two communities that are going to be basically running through this program. I believe the program normally costs in excess of $10,000. And this will start very shortly.
Yes, thank you for that. Anything else?
Mr. Sullivan has a lot of work in front of him.
Oh, yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
I hear a bunch of seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. Thank you very much for hanging in there. Good night.